Chapter 2384. Half an hour later, Suyu had quietly wrapped the rope around more than half of the bone dragon's body. He only needed to wrap the front half of the body before he could successfully tame the first bone dragon. However, what Suyu did not expect was that at this moment, the bone dragon's 10,000-foot-long body suddenly trembled. Its body quickly stretched out from its crouching position. In its empty eye sockets, two dim yellow flames lit up without warning. A powerful consciousness was emitted from his head. Suyu's heart thumped. It's over. He must have awakened the bone dragon by accident. One bone dragon was not scary. At most, he could sacrifice a drop of the insect ancestor's blood to kill it. However, the evil dragon had said that the bone dragons could sense each other. Often, the awakening of one bone dragon would lead to the awakening of the other bone dragons. Therefore, even if Suyu used all 3 drops of ancestral blood, he might not be able to deal with all the bone dragons. Therefore, once the bone dragons were awakened, Suyu needed to escape immediately and find a place to wait patiently for a year and a half, waiting for them to fall into a deep sleep again. Roar. A low and desolate dragon roar came from the bone dragon's body. Its huge body began to sway vigorously. In the darkness not far from Suyu, 3 intense dragon roars could be heard. The pressure brought about by each dragon roar was not much weaker than the giant dragon in front of him. Suyu took out the ancestral dragon's strange feather and prepared to leave this place without hesitation. However, the awakened ancestor dragons did not have any intention of chasing after Suyu. They did not even notice Suyu's existence. Even the bone dragon that was half tied up by Suyu merely looked at the rope on the surface of its body doubtfully before struggling to break free. Then, the several bone dragons called out to each other and swam deeper into the darkness together. Suyu retrieved the ancestral dragon's strange feather, surprised. The bone dragons were creatures without intelligence. Now that they had all awakened and were heading in the same direction, could something big have happened there? With that in mind, Suyu quietly attached himself to the giant bone dragon's body and followed them deeper into the darkness. Along the way, he heard the bone dragons roar from time to time. They were all swimming in the same direction, and their speed was getting faster and faster, until a pale white light appeared in front of him. It was a gigantic golden scale. However, its color was extremely dim, as if it had experienced too much time. Its radiance had been wiped away, releasing a deathly pale light. Under the scale, a man in a black robe was fighting 3 bone dragons. What shocked Suyu was that the 3 bone dragons were all bone dragons of the great venerable realm. With a swing, the earth shook and the mountains shook. 3 great venerable realm bone dragons stacked together were enough to sweep through a region. However, what was even more shocking was that the black-robed man was able to fight 3 giant dragons by himself and was not at a disadvantage at all. The bone venerable dragon of the 3 dragons of the dragon of the venerable. The 3 great venerable realm bone dragons roared again and again. They launched frenzied attacks, but to no avail. When the skeletal dragon that Suyu was riding on arrived, the 3 skeletal dragons roared in unison. All the other skeletal dragons that had rushed over to assist the 3 skeletal dragons in dealing with the black-robed man. Under the crazy attack of hundreds of bone dragons, the black-robed man was finally at a disadvantage. His black robe was torn apart by a bone dragon of the great venerable realm, revealing his true form. What was rather surprising was that it was actually a woman, a very cold woman dressed in black. Her whole body was filled with a monstrous demonic energy. Every move she made gave off a tremendous pressure. Suyu had only seen such an aura from the divine flame demonic woman. Who is she? Suyu wondered. The woman's black robe was torn off, and her face was filled with hostility. A bunch of dragons who died with grievances. As she spoke, she patted her waist and took out a small black gourd. Suyu didn't know what grade the small gourd was. He stared at the mouth of the black gourd and had a very bad feeling. Heavenly Abyss demonic gourd. Keep. The woman raised the gourd and shouted at the nearest bone dragon of the great venerable realm. Suddenly, a beam of black light shot out from the gourd. The black light shone on the body of the bone dragon. The bone dragon of the great venerable realm was sucked into the gourd. The surface of the gourd was wriggling faintly. It was the bone dragon struggling inside, trying to break out of the gourd. However, the gourd's material was extremely hard, and it didn't succeed. Then, the woman raised the gourd and shone it again and again. Every time it shone, a bone dragon was sucked away. Within the time it took for a joss stick to burn, hundreds of bone dragons were sucked away by the mysterious woman with the gourd. However, the price paid by the woman was not low. Her face was as pale as a piece of paper, and she was panting heavily. Both her path master strength and physical strength had been greatly consumed. She hung the gourd back on her waist with difficulty and wiped the sweat off her forehead. I didn't wake the bone dragons. Why did they suddenly wake up? While muttering softly, the woman circled around the giant scale, searching for it. From time to time, she would dig around the scale, as if she was looking for something. After searching for a long time, she found nothing. The woman stood on the spot, lost in thought, and said to herself, "It should be right. The previous Dragon Emperor did fall here. Why is there only one scale?" Suyu, who had turned into a speck of dust, was confused. The Dragon Emperor fell here? Didn't he fall in the civilization of the Sea of Constellations? He had seen the Dragon Emperor's body with his own eyes. His inherited treasure, the royal power dragon sovereign sword, was also obtained there. Suddenly, the woman seemed to have sensed something, and she looked in Su Yu's direction coldly. "Come out." As he spoke, a wisp of extremely tyrannical devil chi shot straight over. Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. Have I been discovered? Just as he was about to move, a strange, intense fluctuation appeared not far away from him. A giant dragon with a strange aura and an extremely old appearance appeared. He had transformed into a hunchbacked old man, holding a walking stick. He looked at the demonic energy that was attacking him calmly. However, when the demonic energy was 3 feet away from him, it was easily blocked by an invisible energy wall. Seeing this, the woman's pupils shrank, and she stared at the person in front of her without blinking. The Dragon Emperor? What? Suyu, who was hiding in the dark, was shocked. The old man in front of him was the current Dragon Emperor? Wasn't it rumored that he wasn't particularly old? Why did he look so old? He looked even older than the old monsters like the South Pole Fairy One, who had lived for an era. Haha, isn't it a pleasure to have a friend come from afar? The Dragon Emperor smiled calmly. Mo Qinglong has come to the southern region personally. I should welcome you personally. Suyu was surprised once again. That demonic woman was Mo Qinglong from the northern region? Suyu had naturally heard of the number 1 demonic person in the northern region, Mo Qinglong. It was said that she was an unparalleled demonic cultivator with unfathomable strength, someone who could stand shoulder to shoulder with the Dragon Emperor. To think that she was a woman just like the divine flame demonic woman. Suyu had never thought that she, who had never stepped out of the northern region, would appear in the ancient battlefield of the southern region's dragon clan. Mo Qinglong stared at the Dragon Emperor, her crystalline eyes filled with self-blame. I was careless. It seems like you discovered me the moment I entered the southern region. If I'm not mistaken, you were the one who awakened the bone dragons just now, weren't you? Mo Qinglong asked. In order to deal with those bone dragons, she had expended a lot of energy. This was probably the result that the Dragon Emperor wanted to see. Under normal circumstances, she might not have been afraid of the Dragon Emperor. But now, the Dragon Emperor was much more cunning and cautious than she had imagined. Of course I noticed you when you entered the southern territory. Otherwise, I would be chasing after a human right now, and not keeping a close eye on you. The Dragon Monarch's eyes narrowed, and they emitted a sinister aura. Mo Qinglong secretly recovered while pretending to be calm. Since I've been discovered, I have nothing to say. Yes, I'm here to find the remains of the Dragon Emperor, but so what? As a demonic cultivator, it was unbelievable that she needed the remains of the Dragon Clan. Nothing. I just want to tell you that if the remains of the previous Dragon Emperor were here, would it be your turn to find them? The Dragon Emperor said calmly. I've searched this place no less than 10,000 times. In other words, even he did not know where the remains of the previous Dragon Emperor were. Emo Qinglong sighed softly. Before coming here, she had thought about it. However, the remains of the previous Dragon Emperor were of great use to her. Even if the chances were slim, she still wanted to search for them. Unfortunately, that sliver of luck was gone. However, although she did not obtain the remains of the previous Dragon Emperor, the remains of the other dragons could still be used. This trip was not in vain. If that's the case, I'll take my leave. Emo Qinglong spread a pair of giant wings behind her back and instantly rushed out into the sky. However, her figure crashed into an invisible wall of air and bounced back. Just like the mysterious wall of air on the surface of the Dragon Emperor's body. 9-5 Dragon Emperor Energy. Emo Qinglong's face darkened. She turned her head and stared at the Dragon Emperor. What do you mean? The Dragon Emperor smiled calmly. Do you think the southern region is a place where you can come and go as you please? Emo Qinglong, seeing that you are the #1 person in the northern region, I won't kill you. However, I need to take 300 million years of your lifespan for my own use. Hearing that, Emo Qinglong laughed angrily. 300 million years? How dare you ask for that? With my cultivation level, I have less than 300 million years of lifespan left. Heaven and earth had an end, let alone living beings. Emo Qinglong's own lifespan was less than 300 million years. How could she be willing to give it to the Dragon Emperor? Su Yu's heart stirred. Why did the Dragon Emperor ask for lifespan? Could it be that after cultivating the ancestral dragon's nirvana, he had thought of a way to replenish his lifespan? The Dragon Emperor's eyes were calm. If you hand it over, you can leave. If you don't, you'll stay forever. The choice is up to you. His calm tone was filled with boundless overbearingness. Emo Qinglong snorted coldly. That depends on how capable you are to make me stay. Swish. Emo Qinglong's body shot out thousands of black lights, shooting towards the 9-5 Dragon Emperor energy in front of her. With a poof, the tight wall of air was pierced through by Emo Qinglong. However, before she could leave, the Dragon Emperor tapped his walking stick lightly. Instantly, the 9-5 Dragon Emperor energy formed a dragon claw and slammed down. The demonic energy on the surface of Emo Qinglong's body dispersed wildly, and her body was pressed down rapidly. If she was at her peak, Emo Qinglong would not be afraid. However, because she had been plotted against, her strength as a path master was lacking, and she could not continue. Her crystalline eyes flashed, and she changed direction, rushing towards where Su Yu was. She said coldly, "You have been watching in secret for so long. Are you still not going to show yourself?" As she spoke, a black light shot out from her mouth, shooting straight at Su Yu. Chapter 2385. Su Yu's expression was calm, and he was not surprised at all. He had experienced too many similar situations. As the black light approached, the space around Su Yu swirled and engulfed it. Then, Su Yu appeared in front of the two of them in a folded manner. The Dragon Emperor narrowed his eyes. Spatial domain. I've been in seclusion for so many years. How come I didn't know that there were so many spatial domain experts in the outer district? First, there was a human who killed the lone emperor, Long Taiji, and many dragons. Then, there was a mysterious person who barged into the dragon race's battlefield. When did spatial domains become so rampant? His voice contained the pressure of Mount Tai. Wherever his voice passed, it caused the air to tremble. As the voice brushed past the surface of Su Yu's body, it dispersed the thunderbolts on the surface of his body, revealing an extremely handsome silver-haired human. It really is you. Why isn't this Empress surprised at all? How could someone who dared to trespass on the divine dragon battlefield be a coward? Suyu had the guts to kill the lone emperor and Long Taiji, so what was the point of barging into the divine dragon battlefield to him? And then? Suyu calmly asked, standing beside Emo Qinglong without batting an eyelid. Emo Qinglong looked at Suyu in surprise, and when he saw his cultivation, his eyes were filled with indescribable disappointment. He was actually only a half-step Downlord. She guessed that since this person dared to venture into the depths of the divine dragon battlefield and hid himself so well, even if his cultivation was not as good as hers, he should still be quite good. If the two of them worked together, they might be able to contend against the dragon monarch. Who would have expected that it would actually be a half-step Downlord? It was truly a huge surprise to her. However, she rolled her eyes and looked back and forth between Suyu and the Dragon Emperor. Why did it sound like there was some sort of enmity between the two of them? But what enmity could there be between a half-step Downlord and a supreme dragon monarch? To be precise, did the former have the right to bear grudges against the latter? And then, the dragon monarch smiled calmly. "Human, you are very confident that you can leave this place alive." As he spoke, the Dragon Emperor tapped the ground with his walking stick. The 9-5 chi in the sky instantly condensed into a giant claw that slammed down towards him. Just now, Emo Qinglong was directly slapped down by a similar palm, and he had no strength to resist. How could Suyu resist it? Emo Qinglong sighed in his heart and was about to dodge. She felt that she had made a mistake. The youth in front of him wasn't a suitable partner at all. To her surprise, Suyu said calmly, "Let's make a deal. Give me all the skeletal dragons in that gourd. In exchange, I'll take you out of here alive," Suyu said nonchalantly without looking at her. Upon hearing this, Emo Qinglong looked at Suyu in disbelief. His gaze seemed to be asking whether he had heard wrongly. "You didn't hear me wrong. Whether you agree or not, it's all up to you," Suyu said calmly, while he secretly took out the insect ancestor's finger. He only needed one strike to kill the dragon monarch on the spot. Emo Qinglong looked at Suyu. Her rationality told her that only a lunatic would believe a human youth who was a half-step Dao master. But looking at his unusually calm face, she somehow believed him. "Yes, as long as you can do it." "Alright." Whoosh, when the 9-5 Dragon Emperor energy slammed down, Suyu took out the insect ancestor's finger and crushed it towards the Dragon Emperor. However, the Dragon Emperor's old eyes remained calm. Suyu was puzzled. Could something be wrong? But since things had already come to this, he had no other choice. He activated a drop of insect ancestor's blood essence and completely activated his finger. Boom, with a dull thud, the insect ancestor's finger turned into a giant shadow that covered the sky and pressed down on the Dragon Emperor's body. Puff! The Dragon Emperor turned into broken pearls on the spot. He couldn't have been more dead. Looking at the broken pearls that filled the sky, Suyu had a surreal feeling. How could he die so easily? Long Taiji could escape several times, but the Dragon Emperor died so easily. It was unbelievable. But no matter what, the Dragon Emperor was indeed dead. Suyu turned around slowly and looked at Emo Qinglong, whose face was filled with shock. He extended his palm. "Give it to me." Emo Qinglong hid his shocked expression and regained his composure. He looked at the finger in his palm thoughtfully, and his eyes flickered. "Let's make another deal. I'll use the stardust of the North Domain in exchange for this finger, and I'll do something for you. What do you think?" Suyu didn't know what the stardust of the North Domain was. He also didn't know how useful Emo Qinglong's help would be. What he knew was that those conditions couldn't be exchanged for the insect ancestor's finger. "I can promise you," Suyu said. "However," Suyu said, "the premise is that your help can kill the Dragon Emperor like this finger did just now." Hearing that, Emo Qinglong shook his head with a mysterious smile. "Human, you still don't understand what the stardust of the North Domain is." In other words, it was something much more important than her help. "I don't need to know," Suyu said calmly. He curled his finger. I'll say it for the last time. Give it to me. Emo Qinglong made excuses. He obviously didn't want to fulfill his promise. Fine, I'll hand it over to you. Emo Qinglong took out the gourd but didn't hand it to Suyu. Instead, he opened the lid and prepared to release all the bone dragons. I only said I'll give it to you, but I didn't say I'll give it to you along with the gourd. If you want the bone dragons, catch them yourself. Suyu's eyes turned cold. You! The dignified #1 person of the North Domain was acting shamelessly. Young man, this is a lesson for you. You don't have to thank me. Emo Qinglong's words were mischievous. Just as he was about to release the bone dragons, Suyu suddenly felt something. His body moved 1,000 feet away. The beads that the Dragon Emperor had turned into exploded from the inside out, spurting out a large amount of purplish-black flames. Just like the lonely Emperor, the flames that had appeared from within his body. Once touched by those flames, he would definitely die. The flames brushed past Suyu's body. Suyu had dodged a bullet, but Emo Qinglong had never experienced it before. He wasn't so lucky. He was engulfed by the sudden flames. With a pitiful cry, Emo Qinglong's body was ignited, turning into a burning man. The flames burned him at a speed that could be seen by the naked eye. He was about to follow in Suyu's footstep. But she was, after all, the #1 person of the North Domain. Naturally, she had her strength. At the critical moment, she let out a low grunt, and her whole body exploded. A large mass of bloody light spurted out from within. The blood-red light left the body and condensed into a new body outside the flames. It was a beautiful young woman. Emo Qinglong's original body was a middle-aged woman with an unattractive appearance. At this moment, a young woman came out of her body. The two of them looked very similar. Before Suyu could understand what was going on, he saw that the young woman's right pinky had been touched by a trace of flames. The flames immediately spread to her whole body, about to burn her into nothingness. At this critical moment, the young woman gritted her teeth and decisively self-destructed her body. A comparatively weaker mass of light burst forth from her body. The mass of light reformed into a small figure. It was a petite young woman of 12 or 13 years old. She had delicate features, and one could faintly see the shadows of the young woman and Emo Qinglong. This time, there were no flames on the young woman's body. Her figure quickly retreated, distancing herself from the flames. She looked like a young woman, but her eyes were filled with vicissitudes of life. Her voice was especially muffled, sounding like a middle-aged woman rather than a young woman. Dragon Emperor! Whoosh! The drifting flames suddenly condensed into the ferocious head of the Dragon Emperor. He looked at Emo Qinglong calmly and said in a hoarse voice, "Someone once said that you had cultivated the eternal demon heart. I didn't believe it. I didn't expect it to be true. Before you die, you can release your past body and regain your youth." Impressive. Suyu was inwardly surprised. Regain youth? The young woman in front of him was Emo Qinglong? How could I be more powerful than you? A mere clone or something else is stronger than my real body. It seems like the rumors are true. Your real body has already surpassed the realm of the Yellow Path Master and entered the ranks of the Mysterious Path. Suyu's eyes narrowed. The Dragon Emperor just now was just a clone of the real Dragon Emperor? It was no wonder that even though he was killed, his expression was calm. Because his real body wasn't scathed. Hee. The Dragon Emperor's voice was hoarse and calm. You and that human only have 3 years to escape. 3 years later, I will catch up with you. As soon as he finished speaking, the mass of flames exploded on the spot, turning into 2 incomparably gray runes that shot toward the two of them. Suyu's expression changed slightly, and he immediately used the power of space to escape. But the runes ignored space and hit Suyu's body directly. Suyu could vaguely feel a cold, sinister aura penetrating deep into his bones. At that moment, the life and death curse in his body appeared again, devouring the runes of the dragon clan. But it was different from the lonely Emperor's curse. This rune was unusually powerful. Not only did the life and death curse not devour it, but it was also destroyed by the runes. In the end, the life and death curse was completely erased, and the runes were only 1/3 gone. Su Yu's face fell. The runes were harmless, but they could be sensed by the Dragon Emperor at all times. Looking at Emo Qinglong, she wasn't any better. She had returned to her teenage years, and her cultivation had obviously dropped by a level. After resisting for a while, the runes finally entered her body. With a muffled groan, the girl's face was extremely pale. She clenched her teeth and said hatefully, "Dragon Emperor!" She looked at Su Yu again, her expression extremely complicated. After pondering for a long time, she threw the gourd to Su Yu. "Now we are grasshoppers tied to the same rope." Her eyes drifted, obviously pinning her hopes on the insect ancestor's finger in Su Yu's hand. Su Yu saw through her mind, but he wasn't very confident about the finger. After all, the finger wasn't the power of the insect ancestor himself. It was merely a drop of Su Yu's blood. Its true power probably couldn't reach the level of Master Xian. Otherwise, knowing that Su Yu had the finger, the Dragon Emperor wouldn't have dared to hunt him down. He must have known that the finger couldn't harm the Dragon Emperor himself, so he was fearless. "I think it's better for two grasshoppers to run separately than to stay together," Su Yu said with a faint look in his eyes. If the two of them separated, the Dragon Emperor might go crazy and chase after Emo Qinglong first. Then, Su Yu would have the time and opportunity to remove the runes. If they stayed together, it would be exactly what the Dragon Emperor wanted. Emo Qinglong pondered for a while, then nodded quickly. "You're right." Chapter 2386. All of a sudden, Su Yu felt a burning sensation on his back. At the same time, a feeling of flesh and blood merging with each other flashed wildly in his heart. "What are you doing?" Su Yu's body shook as he tried to shake Emo Qinglong away. However, to his astonishment, he discovered that Emo Qingdao's abdomen had become one with him. They were truly connected as one. Emo Qinglong was in his body, and Su Yu was in Emo Qinglong's body. The two of them were connected by flesh and blood. With a thought, a wisp of tyrannical spatial energy transformed into a sharp blade and slashed at the point where the two of them were connected. Yet Emo Qinglong's faint and cold voice resounded in his ears. "I advise you not to do that. Otherwise, the devil Tao within my body will remain within your body and interfere with your breakthrough to the Daolord realm for eternity." Kachi, the spatial blades stopped 3 inches above the joint. Su Yu's expression became ice-cold. "Is it a demonic technique?" "This is the innate soul fusion art that I created myself. Originally, I wanted to attach it to the body of a powerful being and use it to survive the great calamity of Doomsday." Emo Qinglong had a proud look on his face. "I didn't expect to use it on a puny human like you." "What a failure!" Su Yu's expression was unsightly. "Then please leave me, a mere human." Unexpectedly, not only was Emo Qinglong unwilling, he even extended his arms and wrapped them around Su Yu's neck, resting his chin on Su Yu's shoulder. At the same time, she wrapped her legs around Su Yu's waist. From afar, it seemed like Su Yu was carrying a little sister on his back. It didn't seem like Su Yu had fused with the woman. "Don't even think of leaving me behind." Emo Qinglong snorted. "My cultivation has regressed greatly, but my lifespan has not. The Dragon Monarch's primary target is definitely me, and then you." Su Yu clenched his teeth. "Buddha said that if I don't go to hell, who will? As a senior, how can you not understand this principle? You're going to die sooner or later anyway, so why drag me down? Why don't you sacrifice yourself and fulfill my wish? Dream on." Emo Qingdao bared his teeth. "I've cultivated for so many years, I can't just die like this." Looking at Su Yu, whose eyes were filled with anger, Emo Qinglong said, "Don't be upset. So what if we separate?" The Dragon Emperor will find you sooner or later. If I'm with you, I can even help you destroy that dragon symbol." Only then did Suyu calm down. "Do you have a way to remove that symbol? Otherwise, would I obediently wait for death?" Emo Qinglong asked in reply. That rune should have been mixed with a trace of the profound Wei energy within the Dragon Monarch's body, and it was refined using the Dragon Clan's secret technique. The secret technique is still fine, but the key is that profound Wei energy. Even I am unable to break through it head-on. She couldn't do anything about it, and neither could Suyu. However, I know of a place where I might be able to find something that can offset this trace of profound Tao energy. "What is it?" Emo Qinglong said. "I told you that you would secretly search for it and leave me behind, right? Alright, you should at least tell me where it is, right? The Eastern region. Over there? That was the place where the 8-star civilizations recruited. Would there be the thing that stalwart devil spoke of?" However, he had to go to the Eastern region sooner or later. Right now, he was just rushing over in advance. "Let's talk in detail after we leave this place," Emo Qinglong urged. Suyu gave a cold hum. "Then hurry up." Taking out the ancestral dragon's strange feather, Suyu activated it instantly. Before he left, he brought 10 giant dragons with him. In a short span of a breath, he crossed the entire western region and arrived at the border of the eastern region. As soon as he appeared, a towering evil energy surged toward him. Under that evil energy, Suyu felt an inexplicable chill. Beneath his eyes, he could faintly see traces of evil energy burrowing into his body through his pores. Don't breathe in the evil energy, unless you want to die in the eastern region. Emo Qinglong released a black ball of light, enveloping Suyu and himself within it. Only then was the evil energy isolated outside. Only then did Suyu feel his body warm up. "Your body is too weak." Emo Qinglong sighed helplessly, hesitating for a moment before saying, "Seeing that we share the same destiny, I will give you a great benefit. From now on, you can use my cultivation at any time. This is also the benefit of our bodies fusing." Suyu's gloomy mood was finally alleviated. Although Emo Qinglong's cultivation had dropped by a level, she was still a strong man of the great venerable realm. If he could use her cultivation, wouldn't he be able to look down on others in the outer regions, and few could rival him? Don't be complacent. I cultivate the demonic path, which is incompatible with you. If I use it for too long, you might become demonized and lose your mind. If that happens, I won't be able to save you. Suyu nodded. "How long can I use it each time?" 10 breaths, Emo Qinglong said. "The interval must be more than a year, so that you won't be affected by my demonic path. Otherwise, you will easily become a demon. In other words, within 3 years, Suyu could use his cultivation 3 times. You can use it once now to strengthen your weak body. Of course, if you use the demonic path to strengthen yourself, your body will more or less suffer some demonic side effects in the future." Emo Qinglong had said all he needed to. Whether or not to choose was up to Suyu. Of course, Suyu would not choose the demonic path to temper his body. He had a more ideal way to temper his body. "I will train here, and you will stand guard for me." Suyu's straightforwardness stunned Emo Qinglong. He said, "In the outer regions, when it comes to body tempering, if the demonic path claims to be second, no one would dare claim to be first. Are you sure you don't want to use the demonic path to temper your body?" Suyu shook his head, sat down cross-legged, and took out the black gourd. In the past, he had already familiarized himself with the method of advancing the heavenly dragon body to a higher level. Taking a deep breath, he first used his own blood essence to draw a spell formation of the Dragon Clan in front of him. It was filled with ancient Dragon Clan words. Even the current Dragon Clan might not recognize all of them. After drawing the spell formation, he unsealed Long Taiji's heart and placed it in the center of the spell formation. Then, he placed the black gourd on one side of the spell formation. Then, He opened the lid of the gourd. Roar. Immediately, a dragon's roar could be heard, and a bone dragon rushed out from within. But before it could show off its power, the blood-colored spell formation suddenly activated, shooting out numerous blood-colored symbols, which struck the body of the bone dragon. When the enormous ancient dragon came into contact with the blood-colored symbols, it quickly melted like snow, turning into snow-white crystals. At that moment, Long Taiji's heart suddenly jumped, and he could faintly hear the sound of breathing. The snow-white crystals were absorbed by the heart. Then, a second bone dragon appeared, but it was destroyed by the spell formation, turning into snow-white crystals, which were then absorbed by the heart. The process repeated itself. After 10 days, all of the bone dragons had been digested by the spell formation. Long Taiji's heart became crystal clear, as if it was carved out of ice. It's finally done. Su Yu swept away the spell formation, holding up the heart, and crushed it. The heart shattered, revealing a small ice dragon that was swimming freely within. It was stunned at first, but under Su Yu's guidance, it pierced through Su Yu's chest. At that moment, Su Yu's whole body was trembling with crackling sounds. His body expanded at an unbelievable speed, becoming bigger and bigger. From the height of an ordinary human, he turned into a snow-white dragon that was 10,000 feet tall in the blink of an eye. The white dragon's body was covered in thick scales, and its dragon whiskers were extremely long. Its eyes were deep and cold, and wherever its gaze passed, everything turned to ice. Its whole body emitted a majestic aura that made people admire it. In terms of the strength of its physique, it was now comparable to the later stage of the celestial realm. It was only a step away from reaching the level of the great venerable realm. Emo Qinglong stared at Su Yu, who had turned into a dragon, muttering, "What secret technique is this?" She had never seen or even heard of a secret technique that could turn a human into a dragon. If she had not seen it with her own eyes, she would not have believed it. Whoosh! The snow-white dragon turned into a human. Su Yu's appearance was still that of Su Yu, but his body was faintly covered with a layer of cold energy. That layer of cold energy was not pure cold energy, but more like a strange gas. Emo Qinglong tried to poke the layer of cold energy with his finger, but unexpectedly, the cold energy repelled his finger. 9-5 Ice Dragon Energy? Emo Qinglong was extremely shocked. The Dragon Emperor had cultivated the 9-5 Dragon Emperor energy, while Su Yu had cultivated the 9-5 Ice Dragon energy. Is that so? Su Yu was slightly surprised. He tried to shake his body, and a layer of energy invisible to the naked eye spread out with him as the center, forming an energy barrier with a circumference of billions of miles. Although its toughness was not as terrifying as the 9-5 Dragon Emperor energy, it was still not to be underestimated. At least, anyone below the later stage of the celestial realm would not be able to break it. Then, under Su Yu's control, the 9-5 Ice Dragon energy turned into a dragon claw and slammed down, leaving a clear dragon claw print on the ground. What an unexpected gain, Su Yu said to himself. Emo Qinglong's eyes were full of envy. You really got all the benefits. They had all gone to the battlefield of the Dragon Clan. In the end, not only did she not get anything, but she had also given up the bone dragon that she had painstakingly collected to Su Yu. As for Su Yu, he had directly achieved his current high-level heavenly dragon body, and he had unexpectedly obtained the 9-5 Ice Dragon energy. Are you referring to the burden on my back? Su Yu asked impatiently. What kind of luck was this? He had lost 2 drops of the insect ancestor's blood essence, was hunted down by the Dragon Emperor himself, and now had Emo Qinglong, who had fused with him. Hey, your words hurt my pride. I am the #1 demonic path in the north. Can't you give me some dignity? Emo Qinglong said, his face full of displeasure. Su Yu did not care whether he was happy or not. He stepped into the east region. As soon as he entered, an even more intense evil energy assailed him. However, it was all blocked by the 9-5 Ice Dragon energy. Without Emo Qinglong's demonic energy defensive light shield, the evil energy before him could not harm Su Yu in the slightest. Just as the two of them entered, a skeleton suddenly burrowed out of the ground. Its arm was as sharp as a knife, and it slashed at Su Yu's legs. Su Yu's eyes were calm and he did not dodge, allowing the knife to slash at his legs. Ding! With a clear and crisp sound, the bone saber broke. At the same time, a boy's cry of pain came from a hidden pile of rocks. A boy emerged from the mud, clutching his arm as he ran, shouting for help. "Teacher, save me! Someone is attacking me!" Swish, swish, swish. Several powerful auras immediately attacked from afar. They were powerful because their cultivation levels had all reached the celestial realm, far exceeding Su Yu's. Chapter 2387. In 3 breaths, 5 people arrived. At the front were 3 middle-aged men, and behind them were 2 youths similar to Su Yu. The boy covered in mud ran to the back of the 3 teachers, pointing at Su Yu and the others. "Teachers, they attacked me," he said pitifully. Su Yu looked at the boy indifferently. After wiping the mud off his face, he could see that he was about 10 years old. He really was 10 years old, not just in appearance. Surprisingly, his cultivation was at the early stage of the fish-dragon realm. Su Yu did not care about cultivation, but wasn't this cultivation a little too abnormal? No matter how powerful a heaven ruler was, he could only become a martial emperor in a dozen years. The boy in front of him was no ordinary creature, was he? Looking at his arm, Su Yu seemed to understand. On his back, Emo Qinglong sighed softly. To think that the East Realm really succeeded. I always thought that they were just daydreaming. The 3 teachers were all female, and their cultivation had reached the celestial realm. They sized up Su Yu and Emo Qinglong. Just as Su Yu thought that they were going to question him, the female teacher in the middle apologized to Su Yu. "The child is mischievous, sorry." The child was dissatisfied. "Teacher, he was the one who attacked me. Why are you apologizing for me?" The female teacher sighed and stroked his head, not saying a word. The other 2 female teachers looked at the one-armed skeleton in front of Su Yu's feet. How weak could a person with such a physique be to be able to break the skeleton's bones? If he had really attacked the boy, would the boy have had the chance to call for help? So, the boy was obviously lying. "Su Ming, I said before, when hunting demonic beasts, you have to look carefully before attacking. Do you understand?" The female teacher in the middle criticized. But her tone was very gentle, and there was no hint of reprimand. The other 2 women did not look stern, and it was clear that they doted on the boy. Su Yu was very dissatisfied. This was because his physique had just advanced to the high stage of the heavenly dragon body and was exceptionally strong. If it had been his previous physique, he would have been injured even if he did not break his leg. However, the 3 women only gave this child a light reminder. They didn't even give him any proper criticism. It was really outrageous. Su Yu secretly shook his head, but he did not intend to pursue the matter further. But even if he didn't pursue the matter, the boy would still take it to heart. But he was the one who broke my skeletal arm. No matter what, he has to compensate me. Su Yu couldn't help but laugh. He hadn't even pursued the matter with the child, yet the child was asking him for compensation? "I'll compensate you with a slap. Do you want it?" Su Yu's gaze turned slightly cold. The moment he said that, the 3 teachers were immediately displeased. The woman in the middle pulled a long face and rebuked. "He's just a child. As an adult, don't you think it's embarrassing for you to be so calculative? Children? A child running out to kill people at such a young age. Not only did he fail to kill, he even wanted the victim to pay for the tools used to kill? Most adults wouldn't be as dangerous as a child, right?" Looking at the expressions of the 3 teachers, Su Yu finally understood where this child's temperament came from. Like teacher, like child. Fine, I'm a man of honor, so I won't bother with lowly people like you. Su Yu's words had a double meaning. He moved his feet and walked around them, heading deeper into the eastern region. Summer insects cannot speak with ice. There is no point in talking to people who do not share the same views. Wait a minute. The woman in the middle called out to Su Yu. You heard what Su Ming said just now. After all, you were the one who broke the skeleton's arm. You should compensate him before you leave. What? Su Yu suspected that he had heard wrongly. When he had first met this woman, she had apologized on behalf of the child. He had thought that this woman was a reasonable person. How could such a ridiculous statement come out of her mouth? If you want to provoke me, I can play with you. If not, please make way. Su Yu's expression turned cold. The female teacher's expression was calm. She said calmly, one must be reasonable. He's just a child. Even if he attacked, how powerful would it be? As an adult, as an elder, how could you break the skeleton's arm? Seeing her spout nonsense with a straight face, Su Yu only laughed. The power of the child's knife was not small. Otherwise, the skeleton's arm would not have been severed. Please be clear about one thing. I am the victim. Su Yu pointed at himself, trying to convince her with logic. The female teacher looked Su Yu up and down, then asked, Are you injured? No. Since you're not injured, how can you be the victim? The other two teachers were not as polite as she was. Teacher Qin, don't waste your breath on him. The teacher on the far right lost her patience. The teachers of the East Region Divine Palace are reasonable people. Since you are not willing to compensate, we have no choice but to take action. East Region Divine Palace? Su Yu had naturally heard of it. It was the most famous academy in the East Region. The academy was founded by the ruler of the East Region, Xie Sanren. However, it was different from ordinary academies. Ordinary academies were chosen by the students of the world. But the East Region Divine Palace was different. It was a compulsory recruitment of the East Region's geniuses. Once they were detected to be extremely talented, they would be sent to the East Region Divine Palace from a young age to further their studies for 100 years. When they graduated 100 years later, there would only be 10 students left. These 10 students would successfully graduate and immediately take charge of important positions in the East Region, becoming influential figures. The rest of the students would become the servants of the other 10. The result was extremely cruel. But because of this, the students who were recruited worked extremely hard to learn and train, afraid that they would become slaves of others when they graduated. In addition, the environment in the East Region was harsh. Under the double psychological and environmental pressure, most of the students would unleash their potential. Because of this, the East Region gave birth to generation after generation of heaven-defying geniuses. Their abilities were all as powerful as demons, especially the number one every year, who had reached a terrifying state. For example, the Lonely Emperor claimed to be the number one person in the South Region and the number one genius in the outer regions. But that was because the geniuses of the East Region Divine Palace never left the East Region Divine Palace. They had no time to wander the outer regions and make a name for themselves. They could not wait to spend all their time training. Therefore, the Lonely Emperor could only be considered the number one genius in the West, South, and North regions. It was hard to say whether he could dominate the East Region. To think that this group of people were from the East Region Divine Palace. No wonder the three middle-aged men called themselves teachers. Seeing that Su Yu did not speak, they thought that Su Yu was intimidated by the reputation of the East Region Divine Palace. We will repeat for the last time. Compensate Su Ming, and this conflict will be written off. Su Yu slowly nodded. All right, tell me, what do you want as compensation? The three teachers looked at the boy with warm smiles. Su Ming, what do you want? Just tell me, don't be afraid. The boy tilted his head, then his eyes lit up. I want the defensive treasure on his body. He could see that it was not Su Yu who had broken off the skeleton's arm, but some kind of defensive item circulating around his body. Hearing this, the three teachers stared at Su Yu. Teacher Qin said, Did you hear that? Take it out. Our time is precious, and we do not have the time to waste with you. Suyu was very calm. I do not have any defensive treasure. He really did not. Teacher Qin said, All right, search him. As she spoke, she took a step forward, her fingers forming a claw as she tried to twist Su Yu's neck. I will capture him. Su Ming search him. However, the moment she approached, a pitch-black palm struck her face like a bolt of lightning. She was unable to react in time. With a slap, a crisp sound reverberated in the surroundings. Teacher Qin spun around on the spot like a spinning top. There was a clear, black palm print on her face. The demonic energy within the palm print did not dissipate with the passage of time. Teacher Qin was stunned by the slap. After a while, she shook her head and regained consciousness. A hoarse voice sounded in her ears. I have tolerated you for a long time. Teacher Qin raised his head and saw Emo Qingdao, who was on Su Yu's back. She was looking at him with an undisguised, disdainful gaze. She had actually been hit by a young girl. Teacher Qin angrily rebuked. Insolence! Whose child is this? How can she be so ill-mannered? His words were filled with intense anger. Su Yu froze, not having expected Emo Qingdao to attack. An old monster like her, who had lived for countless years, should not be bothered by such things. But he did not know that Emo Qingdao cultivated the demonic path, and her temperament was extremely impetuous. Fighting at every turn was the normal behavior of demonic cultivators. She was still considered normal. Seeing Teacher Qin's raging expression, Su Yu's eyes were filled with disdain. Teacher Qin, she is still a child. You are an adult. Don't you think it is beneath your status as a teacher of the East Region Divine Manner to argue with a child? Su Yu said the same thing to Teacher Qin. But she felt a pain in her waist. Emo Qingdao had pinched the flesh on her waist. She angrily said, Who are you calling a child? She was an old monster who had not lived for many years. She only looked like a child now. Nonsense. Can a child slap an adult? Teacher Qin realized that the slap mark on her face could not be wiped off, and her anger grew. Su Yu looked at her seriously. You are not injured. Is it worth making such a fuss? This was what Teacher Qin had said before. In the same situation, she would stand on the moral high ground and speak eloquently. When it came to herself, she was filled with anger. This kind of person did not have a problem with her intelligence. She was just too evil. She was clearly pretending to be ignorant. Cut the crap. Hand over the item. Teacher Qin could not be bothered to continue pretending. She released the aura of a celestial realm cultivator and angrily scolded. The other two teachers did the same, revealing their evil natures. Teacher Qin, it is rare for us to meet an outsider. Let's kill her first. The other two teachers said. Teacher Qin nodded, lightly patting her face. My good guy face is about to become stiff from acting. She bared her teeth, a hint of evilness appearing between her brows. At this point, their true colors had been completely exposed. What they did not expect was that Su Yu did not panic. Instead, he clapped his hands. Wouldn't it have been better if you had done this earlier? In my life, there is one type of person I am most afraid of, and I am least afraid of. Chapter 2388. All his life, he had always done things with a clear conscience. If it had been someone else who was being reasonable, or just talking, Su Yu would not have been able to do anything. Those who harbored evil intentions and liked to bully the weak were easy for Su Yu to deal with. He could just use force. Oh? Outsiders, it is not wise to be arrogant in the East region. If I were you, I would immediately tuck my tail between my legs and admit defeat, Teacher Qin said coldly. The Eastern domain was the most mysterious domain. The creatures that lived there were also extremely mysterious, causing people to feel apprehensive. Su Yu's expression was calm. No matter how mysterious the East region is, it is not to the extent that a few insects would make people hesitate. Haha, what arrogance! Teacher Qin laughed. Teachers, Why don't the three of us show our three students the elegance of the East Region Divine Manners teachers? That's exactly what I was thinking. The three women looked at each other and chose to attack at the same time. Not bad, Suyu said calmly. The cultivation level that Suyu displayed was only that of a half-path master. If it had been an ordinary strong martial artist, they would probably have looked down on him. But the three in front of him were not the least bit careless, choosing to attack at the same time. It was obvious how harsh the East region's environment was, and they were used to being cautious. Unfortunately, they had been too careless and provoked someone they should not have provoked. 9-5 Ice Dragon Energy. Suyu stood where he was, not even moving an inch. He quietly watched the three early-stage Celestial Realm teachers attack him together. When they unleashed their Path Master's power, Suyu casually shook off the 9-5 Ice Dragon energy that surrounded him. He then turned it into an invisible wall of air and pushed it forward. Slap, slap, slap. In an instant, the three teachers were like flies that had crashed into a wall, bouncing off one after another. Wah! Even with their strong bodies, crashing into the energy wall did not feel good, and they all spat out mouthfuls of blood. What is that? Teacher Qin's mouth was full of blood, and he looked back in shock at the formless energy wall that was drenched in blood. The other two teachers were also shocked, completely unsure of the situation. The three students at the back, including the boy, all sucked in a breath of cold air. The three teachers had attacked with all their might, but they had been injured by the other party? An expert. He was definitely an expert. Mr. Qin's expression changed rapidly, and he slammed his hands on the ground. All of a sudden, a cloud of dust soared into the sky, and dozens of demonic beasts, which were made of soil that was filled with evil energy, roared as they crawled out of the cracks in the ground, then attacked Suyu. She, the other two teachers, and the three students quickly fled. His decisiveness made Suyu sigh once again. The people of the East region were obviously different from the people of the other three regions. You want to escape? Suyu's expression was calm. Suyu had tolerated it time and time again, and they had pressured him again and again. Hence, they could not blame Suyu for being merciless. His eyes flashed, and the 9-5 Ice Dragon Chi spread out, enveloping the entire area. At the same time, everything in the area was instantly frozen into ice. This was the true power of the 9-5 Ice Dragon Chi. Other than the three teachers, everything else, including the three students, was turned into ice sculptures. Even so, the three teachers were covered in ice, and their movements became extremely slow. Could this be the Dragon Clan's 9-5 Dragon Chi? The expressions of the three teachers changed drastically as fear appeared on their faces. This is something that only a dragon of the Dragon Clan can comprehend. They had obviously misunderstood that Suyu was a dragon of the Great Venerable Realm. Don't you think it's too late to realize it now? Suyu said coldly, not bothering to explain himself. Thump! Teacher Qin suddenly stopped running. Instead, he turned around and knelt on the ground. He said decisively, I was blind. Please have mercy on me and spare my lowly life. Please forgive me, Senior. Please have mercy, Senior. The other two teachers also knelt down and begged for mercy. It was impossible to find a fourth person to admit defeat so quickly. Suyu was deep in thought, thinking about how to deal with them. If he let them go, he was afraid that they would cause trouble and affect his ability to erase the Dragon Clan's runes. If he killed them, they would beg for mercy so quickly. If you want to live, it's easy. Emo Wudao, who was on Suyu's back, had a sinister smile on his face as he said, As long as you swallow the 9-death demon heart that I personally made, I can spare your lives. Suyu was taken aback. What is the 9-death demon heart? What? 9-death demon heart? You? Could you be the demon master of the North region, Emo Wudao? Teacher Qin's face turned pale as he lifted his head to look at the young Emo Wudao. The other two teachers were also shocked. Emo Wudao smiled calmly. It seems like there is no need for me to introduce myself. Tell me, do you want to die or do you want to accept? I accept. Unexpectedly, the three teachers did not hesitate at all. Instead, they agreed happily. What surprised Su Yu was that the three teachers still had expressions of excitement and anticipation. Fine. Since you are so tactful, take it. Mo Wudao flipped his palm, and 3 beating hearts appeared on his palm. On each heart there were 9 orifices. What a rich life force. Su Yu had mastered the law of life, so he could naturally sense the abnormality of the hearts. Mo Wudao moved closer to Su Yu's ear and blew a breath of air with a faint smile. Why? Do you want it? I can give you an even bigger one. Su Yu rejected him decisively. You can keep it for yourself. Mo Wudao laughed and threw the 3 hearts over. The 3 teachers swallowed them happily, as if they had received a great fortune. Thump! A dull and powerful heartbeat sounded from within the bodies of the 3 teachers. Moreover, there was a faint trace of demonic energy hidden in their blood vessels. Thank you, Demon Master, for your reward, the 3 teachers said joyfully. Su Yu was slightly confused. Was the 9-death demon heart really something good? Lowly human, it is too late for you to regret it, Mo Wudao said proudly. This is the 9-death demon heart that I personally refined. Once the owner of the 9-death demon heart is in danger, even if there is only a drop of blood left, it can be reborn on the spot. It can be used a total of 9 times. In other words, it has 9 lives. Many people have begged me to give them to them, but I have never cared for them. But you actually despise it. Mo Wudao snorted. It was no wonder that the 3 teachers were so excited. Anyone who had received such a great ability would be excited, wouldn't they? Su Yu shook his head, disapproving. He had never thought that there were only benefits and no disadvantages in this world. To obtain the 9-death demon heart, one had to pay a corresponding price. Of course, my heart is not without its disadvantages. Once I obtain it, their lives will be linked to mine. Mo Wudao was slightly guilty. If anything happens to me, they will die immediately. As expected. Su Yu's face darkened. When you say accident, it also includes your bad mood, right? This so-called connection would be a great hidden danger that could decide the life and death of others with a single thought. Cough, cough, that is not the point. Forget it, forget it. Mo Wudao coughed dryly. Su Yu looked at the 3 teachers sympathetically. However, they must have known about the disadvantages of the 9-death demon heart in advance, and were still willing to accept it. Suddenly, Su Yu's heart shook. He did not think that Mo Wudao was a merciful person, so why did he control these 3 people instead of killing them? The 9-death demon heart was not something that could be easily refined, was it? Why waste it on 3 useless people? What are you planning? Su Yu asked. Mo Wudao poked Su Yu's chest in exasperation. We are facing imminent disaster. Why do you think I am doing this? Blocking her hand, Su Yu's heart shook. The thing that can neutralize the power of the mysterious path is in the East Region Divine Manor? You could say so, Mo Wudao answered indifferently. Speak clearly. Su Yu's brows furrowed. He was not one to speak without finishing his sentence. Mo Wudao stammered. To be precise, it is with Xie Sanren. Who? Xie Sanren, the number 1 person in the East Region? This person was known as the number 1 evil in the Outer Realm. He was extremely secretive and unpredictable. No one was willing to deal with him, let alone take something that he carried with him. Then you must have thought of a way? Su Yu asked. Mo Wudao scratched his head and said sheepishly, sneaking into the East Region Divine Manor is the only plan I can think of at the moment. As for how to get that thing, let me think. Su Yu was so angry that he rolled his eyes. After all this time, that thing was just a castle in the air, and she had no way of getting it. No wonder she had been stammering before, only saying that it was in the East Region. She had been stammering about what it was and where it was. Others have boarded a pirate ship, but I have boarded a sinking ship. Su Yu's face had completely darkened. To take something from the number one evil in the East region was as difficult as ascending to heaven, but now that things had come to this, he had no other choice. Looking at the three teachers, it seemed like he could only look for a breakthrough from them. But the three teachers had to get rid of the three students. Looking at the three ice sculptures, Su Yu thought about how to deal with them. Just kill them, it's such a simple matter. Mo Wudao had a relaxed expression, not feeling the slightest bit guilty. Su Yu was annoyed. If you have no other way, then shut up. Fine, I'll shut up. Mo Wudao snorted and turned her head away. Su Yu stood where he was, his mind spinning, one plan after another appearing in his mind. But he had too little information at the moment, and he did not know which plan was more reliable. But Su Yu had already decided on how to deal with the three people in front of him. With a wave of his hand, the 9-5 ice dragon dispersed, and all the living beings within its range gradually recovered. Su Yu looked at the three teachers and said seriously, "From today onwards, the two of us are your new students. When we return to the East Region Institute of Theology, do not reveal our whereabouts. Do you understand?" The three teachers were stunned, looking at Mo Wudao, who was on Su Yu's back, subtly acknowledging her as their leader. "Why are you looking at her?" Su Yu shouted. "She's just a parasite on my body. She has to listen to me for everything. Since you are her people, you are also my people." Mo Qingdao's eyes widened, and he bit Su Yu's shoulder. "Fine, this worm, will bite you now." Unfortunately, Su Yu's physique was so strong that she almost lost her teeth. In her anger, she could only say to the three teachers, "Listen to his orders in the future." Yes. Only then did the three teachers submit to Su Yu. At that moment, the three students gradually melted from the ice, shivering as they looked around. When their gazes landed on Su Yu, their expressions changed. Chapter 2389. They had not personally witnessed Su Yu's 9-5 ice dragon energy, nor did they know Mo Qinglong's identity. But Su Yu's terrifying wall of energy still made them tremble in fear. Without hesitation, they immediately split into three groups and escaped. "Why are you running? Don't make a fuss." But at this moment, Teacher Qin suddenly stopped them. The three students froze, turning to look at Teacher Qin in confusion. If they did not escape now, when would they? "While you were sealed in ice," Teacher Qin said proudly, "they were infatuated with red names. They are now our people." When the three students heard this, their expressions changed drastically. Infatuated with red names was a mysterious hidden weapon personally crafted by the Xie Sanren. Once hit, they would wholeheartedly pledge their loyalty to the East Region Divine Palace. Many unruly and ruthless people in the East Region were fortunate enough to experience the feeling of being infatuated with red names, becoming the guardian slaves of the East Region Divine Palace. Congratulations, Teacher Qin. You have obtained an outstanding servant. The three students ran back happily, not suspecting that their teacher had betrayed them. The boy licked his lips, his eyes filled with malice. "Teacher, leave this detestable servant to me. Humph, he dares to freeze me? I'll burn him to death." But Teacher Qin did not let him do as he usually did. He said sternly, "No!" "Why?" The boy stomped his feet, extremely dissatisfied. The other two teachers said, "Su Ming, you are not young anymore. You should understand the relationship between us and the other teachers of the East Region Divine Palace. Yes, there are 81 teachers in the East Region Divine Palace. Every 3 teachers form a group and train their own students. The students that the 3 of us train are not as outstanding as the other group. If this continues, not only will you become someone else's servant when you graduate, but the 3 of us will also have to bear the Xie Sanren's 10,000 evil bone corrosion for 10 years. At the mention of the 10,000 evil bone corrosion, the 3 teachers could not help but shiver. That was the punishment that the Xie Sanren gave to the teachers who failed. If a teacher didn't teach his students well, he would suffer the punishment of 10,000 evil corroding his bones. That feeling was comparable to entering the 9 hells or the Yellow Springs. The pain was unforgettable and unforgettable. Su Ming said in surprise, "Teacher Qin, you want to take these two as your students?" Mr. Qin nodded seriously. "Yes, do you have any objections?" Su Ming glared at Su Yu angrily. "I am not willing. If there is him, then there will be no me." "Fine, I will fulfill your wish," Teacher Qin said indifferently. "If you insist on doing this, then you can choose another teacher." Su Ming was stupefied. He had never thought that a student who was so well received and loved by the teacher would be treated so coldly overnight. He could not compare to an outsider like Su Yu. His mind was in turmoil and he had mixed feelings. He gritted his teeth and said, "I'm just saying it out of anger. How could it be that easy to change teachers? Under Teacher Qin, he could receive the best care, but under the other teachers, it was different. It won't happen again." He then looked at Su Yu and said slowly, "Su Yu, from today onwards, you are my student. Now, follow me to the campsite." "Yes, Teacher Qin," Su Yu said with a respectful expression. Of course, all of this had been secretly instructed by Su Yu. It was necessary to sneak into the Eastern Region Divine Abode. As for her, Mr. Qin pretended to ask. Su Yu said, "She is my younger sister. Her name is Little Demon Su." As he spoke, his waist was violently twisted again. Teacher Qin's original name was Qin Hui, and the other two teachers were Yushan and Chen Yun. Their group's training had been interrupted prematurely due to an accident, and they had returned to a civilization filled with evil energy. There were many teachers and students in that civilization. They had all come to a great hall in the civilization and taken out the demonic beasts they had hunted. It turned out that this was a routine training for the Eastern Region Divine Abode every year. Different groups of teachers would lead their students to the borders of the Eastern Region to hunt demonic beasts. Qin Hui led Su Yu and the others into the Great Hall. Inside the Great Hall, there were full-time members of the Eastern Region Divine Abode in charge of recording the demonic beasts hunted by each group. "Teacher Qin, where are the demonic beasts your students hunted?" The old man looked at Su Yu and Mo Qinglong, slightly surprised. Qin Hui waved her hand, and the 3 students, including the child, each took out the demonic beasts they had hunted. The old man sized them up, then picked up a pen to record. 2 level 7 demonic beasts, 8 level 6 demonic beasts, and 30 level 5 demonic beasts. A total of 90 points. Temporary ranking 27. There were a total of 27 groups in the Eastern Region Divine Abode. Ranking 27th was naturally the last place. Qin Hui's expression did not look good. There were still about 10 days before the training officially ended. The other groups would continue hunting, and the number of demonic beasts they would obtain would increase. "Teacher Qin, I need to remind you that the group that ranks last in this training will be punished by becoming a slave for 7 days. The teacher will be publicly whipped 30,000 times. Are you prepared?" the old man asked. Qin Hui nodded, her face slightly pale. After the students became slaves, anyone in the Eastern Region Divine Abode could order them around, and they could not resist. Otherwise, they would be punished even more severely. None of the people in the Eastern Region Divine Abode were kind. They would use this opportunity to humiliate the slaves, causing them to have a mental breakdown and lose the right to compete with them. The teacher's situation was not much better. After 30,000 lashes, the injuries were minor. What was important was that the process was extremely humiliating. Those who were being punished would be stripped of all their clothes and executed in public. The 3 of them were female teachers. If they were to endure such punishment, they would not have the face to raise their heads in the Eastern Region Divine Abode. "I'm here to apply for 2 student cards." Qin Hui pointed at Su Yu and Mo Wudao. "These are Su Yu and Little Demon Su. They are the 2 new students that I took in during the hunt." The old man had a look of realization. Teachers have the right to take in new students. However, if there are any problems with the students, the teachers are the first to be held responsible. This was to prevent teachers from taking in students with unknown identities, which could lead to all sorts of consequences. I understand. Qin Hui nodded. Without another word, the old man took out two very strange pieces of paper and blew on them. The words Su Yu and Little Demon Su appeared on each of them. Then, the old man flicked his wrist, and the two pieces of paper instantly sank into the heads of the two students. Their names flickered between their brows. From today onwards, the two of you are students of the Eastern Region Divine Abode. Remember to work hard and do not slack off. Su Yu and Mo Wudao nodded. We understand. Go on, there are still 10 days left. I hope you can make it. The old man waved his hand, allowing them to continue their training. After they left, a purple-faced middle-aged man walked in from outside the hall. He said with a smile, Elder Mo, how was it? Did any of the teams have better results than our Qilin team? 27 teams, each with a different code name. Among them, one of the most famous teams was the Qilin team. Not only were the teachers powerful and experienced, but the students they took in were also of the highest quality. Over the years, the Qilin team had always been in the top 3. This time, he took the lead and with his current score of 200 points, he was firmly in first place. Elder Hiroshi shook his old head, and a rare smile appeared on his indifferent face. Your Qilin group is very strong, and your luck is very good this time. You bumped into a whole nest of level 6 demonic beasts, so you can refresh your first place ranking. Haha, that's good, the purple-faced middle-aged man said. However, the lowest score has been refreshed. It's the Azure Dragon team, Elder Mo said enthusiastically, completely different from the attitude he had with Qin Hui and the others. The purple-faced, middle-aged man shrugged. As expected, 3 useless women and 3 useless students. Every year, we've always been in the bottom 5. It's normal for us to be in last place this year. Elder Mo nodded. There's no suspense about the first and last place. On the other side, returning to the void, Qin Hui said, You all heard what was said just now. It's an honor for our Azure Dragon team to be in last place. Su Ming clenched his fists tightly. Damn it! We were the first to discover the lair of the level 6 demonic beasts, but the Qilin team got there first. Qin Hui shook her head. You are not as skilled as others. If you do not wish to become the slaves of the other students, and do not wish to be tortured by them, you must focus now and work hard to find the demonic beasts. The 3 students' hearts tightened. Su Ming looked at the other 2 students. Brother Jing, Brother Qing, let's go. He cast a sidelong glance at Su Yu, intending to encourage them. Qin Hui received Su Yu's secret message. Yushan, Chun Yun, you follow them. I'll follow Su Yu and Little Demon Su. According to the rules, teachers had to secretly follow and protect the students while they were training. After waiting for Su Ming and the others to leave, Qin Hui lowered her head and smiled bitterly. We've embarrassed ourselves in front of the 2 masters. Our Azure Dragon team is incompetent. Perhaps we'll make the 2 masters suffer. Mo Qinglong said indifferently, Isn't there still 10 days? With her abilities, wouldn't it be easy for her to hunt the demonic beasts? Master, you don't know. Qin Hui smiled bitterly. This time, we've reached the final stage. Most of the demonic beasts have already been killed. Whether or not we'll encounter a high-level demonic beast will depend on luck. If Mo Qinglong had joined earlier, they would not have been able to escape from many of the high-level demonic beasts they encountered. Especially the lair of the level 6 demonic beast. The Qilin team would not have gotten there first. It was too late now. Mo Qinglong's brows twitched. Could it be that I, the number 1 demonic cultivator of the North region, will have to come to the East region to be the slave of those little bastards? Su Yu was expressionless. He activated Xiao Dai's shared perspective. He had seen the demonic beasts just now. Demonic beasts of different levels represented different colors in Xiao Dai's perspective. At this moment, with a glance, everything in the world appeared in his eyes in different colors. Among them, there were 2 colors that were exactly the same as the color of the level 7 demonic beast. The northeast corner is 1 billion miles away. The southeast corner is 300 million miles away, Suyu said calmly. He then flew to the northeast corner. Suyu stopped in the sky above a valley that had no cover at all. Chapter 2390. Just as he was thinking, Mo Qingdao, who was on Suyu's back, suddenly exclaimed, "There really is one." He blew a breath into the valley, and suddenly, a gust of wind blew in the valley. Countless dust and sand were swept up into the air. Some of the seemingly ordinary dust and sand came to life, desperately gathering together to form a giant python with an evil aura. It struggled and tried to escape in fear, but it could not escape the breath. It fell in front of Suyu. Seeing this, Teacher Qin exclaimed, "This is an extremely rare level 7 demonic beast, the yellow dust python. Oh my god, no wonder no one found it." This python was extremely special. Once it chose to hide, it could split its body into countless dust particles. Unless there was a powerful person, it would be difficult to find it. It was not surprising that Mo Qingdao could see through the yellow dust python. What was surprising was how Suyu could determine that the yellow dust python was hiding from hundreds of millions of miles away. It was incredible. Suyu grabbed the yellow dust python and put it into his space storage device. His eyes flashed as he looked at the southeast corner. In the southeast corner was a ruined cave, and he could faintly smell the remnants of a large number of demonic beasts. Seeing this, Teacher Qin sighed. This was the lair of the level 6 demonic beasts that they had discovered, but the Qilin civilization had gotten there first. However, she felt that Suyu's trip had been in vain. Not only had the Qilin team searched this place thoroughly, but the Azure Dragon team had also come to search. The other teams had also come to try their luck after learning that this was the lair. But without exception, none of them had found anything. This lair had already been turned upside down. How could they possibly find new demonic beasts? However, when Suyu arrived, he did not say a word, but punched the lair below him. With a rumble, the entire cave shook. Then, to Qin Hui's surprise, the cave suddenly closed, and at the same time, it rapidly burrowed into the ground. What? The lair itself is an evil beast? Qin Hui was shocked. After a few chases, the level 7 demonic beast was still no match for Suyu's powerful physique, and it was knocked unconscious with a punch. Qin Hui stared at Suyu in disbelief. If the former could be considered a coincidence, then how could the latter, when Suyu was 300 million miles away and had locked onto another level 7 demonic beast? Mo Qinglong clicked his tongue in wonder. My gosh, can you do divination? Even she could not sense the demonic beast, but Suyu could easily recognize it. Upon hearing that, Suyu did not speak. He looked around and said calmly, 800 million miles north, 700 million miles northwest, 400 million miles southwest, in the following 5 days. Suyu went to 7 or 8 regions, and in each region, he accurately found a lone demonic beast. Qin Hui was dumbfounded by his precision. What surprised her even more was that every single one of them was at least a level 6 demonic beast. The 3 of them stood in front of a messy ancient tree. Suyu had just captured another level 7 demonic beast here. Including the ones you've killed before, we already have 270 points. Qin Hui's face glowed with joy. The boulder that had been pressing on her chest for a long time was suddenly lifted. With this kind of result, she can at least be ranked in the top 15. Not only would they be able to break away from the bottom 5, but they would also be able to fight their way into the top 15. The Azure Dragon team's training this time around would definitely be an eye-opener. Only 15? Suyu was a little dissatisfied. Looks like we have to continue. He swept his gaze in a certain direction, and his eyes lit up. Oh? An undiscovered lair of level 6 demonic beasts? I've finally hit the jackpot. In his field of vision, there were no less than 100 level 6 demonic beasts. In terms of points, there should be about 500 points. Combined with what he had gained previously, he had close to 800 points. There was no doubt that he would be ranked first in this training. Whoosh, Suyu immediately flew over. Just as he appeared, he discovered that there was a later stage fish dragon student near the lair. His face was full of joy as he hid nearby. He was crushing a jade talisman, as if he was notifying someone. Qin Hui saw this, her heart filled with hatred. Unfortunately, that student was from the Qilin team. She was about to send a message to Suyu, but Suyu ignored her and used the 9-5 Ice Dragon energy to freeze the student into an ice sculpture. He then used the 9-5 Ice Dragon energy to surround the entire lair of the demonic beast. After that, he and Mo Qinglong began harvesting the demonic beasts without restraint. After a cup of tea's time, 100 level 6 demonic beasts were all in the bag. There are still a few level 5 demonic beasts. Mo Qinglong's eyes were sharp, and he discovered that there were still a few small demonic beasts hiding. He was about to capture them when Suyu lazily turned around. That's enough. Hearing this, Qin Hui blushed with shame. Su Ming's 3 students had fought to the death with the other teams for a single level 5 demonic beast. In the end, Suyu did not even look at him. This was the difference between them. Suyu and the others left. As they left, they kept the 9-5 Ice Dragon energy. The student who had turned into an ice sculpture slowly melted. He shuddered, then looked at the empty lair in front of him, and flew into a rage. Who is it? Who is it? Before long, a group of 3 people quickly approached. Their cultivation levels were all at the later stage of the fish dragon realm. Zhao Zhili, what's going on? An extremely thin youth looked at the slowly melting cold air. Zhao Zhili was furious, pointing to the lair. We've been intercepted. Such a thing happened? The thin youth's eyes were filled with disbelief. That was 100 level 6 demonic beasts. Even if the 4 of us attacked with all our might, it would be impossible to capture all of them. Moreover, it only took a cup of tea's time for us to rush over. How could a student do it? The 3 students looked at Zhao Zhili suspiciously. I swear to the heavens that everything I've said to you is true. Zhao Zhili swore. The 3 students creased their brows. That's strange. Forget it. It was definitely not done by a student. Maybe it was taken away by a senior who was passing by. It won't affect our results, the thin youth said after some thought. The other students nodded. There were still 5 days until the final moment. Their Qilin group was far ahead with a score of 400 points. If nothing unexpected happened, it was impossible for anyone to overtake their first-place result. On the other side, Mo Qinglong asked Suyu, "Where are you going?" "I'm going back to rest." "I've caught enough," Suyu calmly said. His total score of 800 was unshakable. Catching more demonic beasts would be a waste of energy and time. It would be better to return to the civilization and inquire about the East Region Divine Manor so that he could formulate a plan. Wait, I think I saw Su Ming and the others hunting level 5 demonic beasts. Mo Qinglong's senses were powerful, so he immediately discovered them. Let's go and snatch those level 5 demonic beasts. Suyu was not interested. Boring. Helpless, Mo Qinglong could only snort. Those 3 brats have it easy. Upon returning to the civilization, Qin Hui and the other 2 students immediately attracted a lot of attention. The Azure Dragon Group is anxious and came back to inquire about the latest ranking, right? Haha, isn't that right? Look, they don't even have the mood to capture demonic beasts. Unfortunately, they will be very disappointed, because the second from the bottom has already pulled away from them by more than 10 points. However, what shocked them was that Qin Hui did not go to the Great Hall to check the ranking. Instead, she brought Su Yu and Su Little Demon to stay in the civilization's luxurious villa, enjoying a leisurely rest. When the news reached the ears of Elder Mo in the Great Hall, the latter sighed in disappointment. Did the Azure Dragon group know that they have no hope, so they gave up? What an unambitious thing! The purple-faced middle-aged man, who was strolling in the civilization, could not help but laugh when he heard the news. He did not even have a word to say. He did not even have the intention to see such a useless group as a competitor. In the villa, a group of East Region Divine Manor members dressed in black stood outside the villa with stern expressions. "Teacher Qin, I have come to pay a visit." Qin Hui was in the courtyard, obediently telling Su Yu all the information she knew about the East Region Divine Manor. Suddenly hearing a familiar voice, she was slightly surprised. "Teacher Qin from the White Tiger Group? That's strange," Qin Hui said to herself. The White Tiger Group is ranked in the top 3 all year round, comparable to the Qilin Group. Usually, they would not even look at the Azure Dragon Group. Now, they have come to pay a visit. That's strange. Su Yu waved his sleeves. "Let's go meet them first." "Yes." Qin Hui came to the front yard and politely invited the teacher Qin into the guest hall. She was very polite. "Teacher Qin, what brings you here?" Qin Hui's face was full of smiles. She was very respectful to the teacher Qin. The pill master stroked his white beard and sat down on the main seat. His eyelids drooped slightly as he looked down at Qin Hui. "I do have something I need your Azure Dragon organization to do," he said coolly. His tone made Qin Hui quite uncomfortable. Why did it sound like the Azure Dragon Group should listen to the White Tiger Group? "Please speak." Qin Hui's smile faded. The teacher Qin tapped his fingers on the table and went straight to the point. "I'm a little interested in your group's Su Ming. Why don't you let him join my group so that he won't be implicated by your group?" "What?" Qin Hui was annoyed. Between groups, there were often instructors who snatched students from other groups. But it was usually done in secret. Everyone had a tacit understanding. But the teacher Qin was asking Qin Hui for Su Ming. Furthermore, he was using a commanding tone. This was a slap to Qin Hui's face and embarrassing her. "Teacher Qin, don't you think you are going overboard by deliberately humiliating us like this?" Qin Hui's expression was cold. The teacher Qin said calmly, "Your Azure Dragon Group has given up on yourself. Is there any respect left? More seriously, hand Su Ming over to the White Tiger Group. When you are punished, the White Tiger Group can intimidate the other groups and let you suffer less." Hearing this, Qin Hui froze for a moment, then understood. So that's why. She found it funny. Giving up on themselves? Haha, they had already obtained enough results and did not want to obtain any more. But of course, she would not say it out loud. She let out a faint smile. "The Azure Dragon Group does not need your White Tiger Group to worry about it. Scram back to where you came from." The pill master, who had been wearing a calm expression, suddenly froze. He looked at Qin Hui, who had a slightly arrogant attitude, with a somewhat unfamiliar expression. Chapter 2391. "Qin Hui, it looks like you still do not understand your situation," Master Dan coldly reprimanded. He did not understand what was wrong with Qin Hui. He was already destined to be last, yet he still dared to be so arrogant and berate him. Had he not only given up on the training, but had also given up on himself and even given up on graduating? Qin Hui laughed coldly. "I understand my situation very well. There's no need for you to worry about me. I don't want to repeat myself a second time." At this point, the pill master had nothing else to say. His expression turned gloomy. "Fine. Then my White Tiger team will wait to see the fate of your Azure Dragon team. When that time comes, don't blame my White Tiger team for being naughty and bullying your Azure Dragon team's servants. Just you wait." Humph. With a grunt, Master Dan flicked his sleeves and left. Qin Hui watched him leave with a face full of anger. She had never felt so happy before. Ha ha ha, it feels good to chase away a White Tiger team teacher. In the past, their bottom feeder Azure Dragon team could only bow and scrape in front of the White Tiger team. How would they dare to chase them away like now? For the first time, Qin Hui truly felt that meeting Su Yu and Mo Qinglong was not entirely a bad thing. It was not only the White Tiger team that had the same thoughts. Representatives from other teams came to find Qin Hui for a discussion. Some were more tactful, while others were like the White Tiger team, blatantly threatening her. They only had one goal: to get Su Ming. Of course, the answer they received was completely unexpected. Some left in disappointment, while others were filled with shame and anger. This situation continued until 5 days later. Su Ming and the other 2 students returned to the camp on time, led by Chen Yun and Yu Shan. After 10 days of hard work, they had successfully captured 2 level 5 demonic beasts and even accidentally captured a level 6 demonic beast, increasing their team's score by 12 points. Our gains were not bad. If Su Yu and Little Demon Su also managed to hunt demonic beasts, we might have a chance to get rid of last place. Yu Shan was filled with hope. Chen Yun could not help but feel nervous. After returning to the camp, she immediately sent a message to Qin Hui to confirm her location. A short while later, the 2 parties met at the villa after 10 days. Qin Hui took the initiative to welcome them and said with a smile, "Thank you for your hard work, teachers and the 3 students. It's only right for us to work a little harder." Su Ming laughed and said, "Teacher Qin has also worked hard." Qin Hui said calmly, "I'm actually fine. It wasn't hard." She was telling the truth. Along the way, Su Yu and Su Little Demon did not need her protection at all. They just followed them everywhere they went to catch demonic beasts. In the end, he even returned to the villa 5 days earlier to rest. When had he ever been tired? Yu Shan and Chen Yun only thought that Qin Hui was being modest. Chen Yun sighed and said, "Teacher Qin must have worked hard to come back just now, right? I don't know if those 2 have hunted demonic beasts." Qin Hui was speechless. She had already said that she had not worked hard. "To be honest, I came back 5 days ago," Qin Hui said. Yu Shan and Chen Yun were stunned when they heard that. They pursed their lips tightly and stared at Qin Hui with complicated gazes. There was anger, blame, and deep resentment. They led the students to desperately capture demonic beasts outside. What about Qin Hui? She didn't even inform them and directly gave up on the experiential learning and returned to the villa to recuperate? A great sense of disappointment and betrayal surged into their hearts. But the feelings of many years together made them restrain themselves and not act up. But Su Ming and the other 3 students were not so shrewd. Especially Su Ming, who immediately clenched his fists in anger and widened his eyes. "What did you say? Came back 5 days earlier? Then what was the point of them risking their lives to capture demonic beasts? Moreover, they had returned early, which clearly meant that they had given up on the experiential learning. There was no way they could not catch any demonic beasts, right? They had originally had hope of turning the tables, but now there was no hope." Su Ming's anger could be imagined. "Teacher Qin, did Su Yu and Su Little Demon decide to give up?" a student asked with a gloomy expression. The teacher was only responsible for the safety of the students. Whether or not to give up the experiential learning was up to the students, not the teacher. Qin Hui nodded. "Yes, but they have already." Unfortunately, before she could finish her words, Su Ming shouted loudly, "I knew it was those 2 fellows." With a face full of anger, he roared at the villa, "You 2 with the surname Su, get out here." Ever since they had met the 2 of them, nothing good had happened. Now, they had dragged them down to the last place. There was no reply for a long time. Su Ming was furious, feeling as though his chest was about to explode. "If they don't come out, I will level the villa." At this time, Su Yu was in a secret room analyzing the various information of the Eastern Region Divine Manor. How could he have the time to bother with Su Ming? Not receiving a response for a long time, Su Ming reverted to his old habit. With a roar, he used his powerful cultivation level to forcefully destroy the villa. A powerful wave swept out in all directions with him as the center. Everywhere it passed, the buildings were all destroyed. Qin Hui and the other teachers wanted to stop him, but it was too late. They could only curse in their hearts. Crash, the secret room Su Yu was in was not spared. Although there were restrictions, and it did not collapse, it was still swept by the huge tremors, waking him from his concentration. His eyes turned cold. "You're asking for death." Boom! His feet stomped on the ground, and he left the secret room with the space domain, appearing behind Su Ming. Without even looking at him, he slapped the back of his head. Su Ming immediately felt it, and a golden ring appeared above his head as a defense. Slap, however, Su Yu's palm strike was extremely powerful. How could a normal defense defend against it? The ring trembled lightly, then shattered. The back of Su Ming's head took the full brunt of the slap, and he stumbled forward, tumbling a few times before falling headfirst into the ruins, his face covered in dirt. Su Yu retracted his palm, looking at the dissipating ring. He was astonished. What a strange ring! If he had not sensed wrongly, he had faintly felt that the Dragon Emperor's mysterious power in his body had fluctuated. "You dare hit me?" Su Ming crawled up angrily, his eyes wide like a frog's, glaring at Su Yu without blinking. Su Yu regained his senses, calmly looking at him. "Hitting you was light. That slap contained a shred of murderous intent. If not for the protection of the ring, Su Ming would have been killed by that slap." Su Ming came to Qin Hui's side, panting with rage. "Teacher Qin, you must seek justice for me." Qin Hui was speechless. Her life was in Su Yu's hands. How could she seek justice for him? "Su Ming, Su Yu is right, you have gone too far." Qin Hui lectured him with a serious expression. "After you return to the East Region Divine Manor, go into seclusion and reflect." Su Ming was stunned. Teacher Qin, who had protected him in all aspects, was now protecting Su Yu. He was the real victim. Why did she punish him, but not mention a word about Su Yu? Yushan and Chen Yun sighed in their hearts. The latter broke the tense atmosphere, saying, "Stop arguing, time is almost up. Hurry to the Great Hall and hand over the demonic beast." The two of them sighed. It was no longer important whether they handed it over or not. They were destined to be last place. Su Ming cried, feeling wronged. He silently followed them to the Great Hall. In the Great Hall, the other teams had all arrived. This included the White Tiger team and the Qilin team. The entry of the Azure Dragon team caused many teams that had been chased away by Qin Hui to look at them with hostility. Sensing the subtle atmosphere, Yushan and Chen Yun were confused. "Isn't this the Azure Dragon team? They came so late, did they think they could drag it out? Haha, didn't you hear? They gave up 5 days ago. Maybe they had too much fun and forgot about the time. Let's see what happens to them later." Hearing this, Su Ming and the other two students clenched their fists. They didn't have to be last place. "Teacher Qin, how was your hunt?" At this moment, a group of young teachers walked over with 4 students, taking the initiative to greet them warmly. Qin Hui recognized them. They were from the Black Tortoise team. Like the Azure Dragon team, they were usually in the bottom 5. The Black Tortoise team had been last place many times, and this time they were second to last. They were here to find out about the Azure Dragon team's situation, to see if they had made a comeback. Previously, the Azure Dragon team was only 10 points behind the Black Tortoise team. Qin Hui said calmly, "It was alright, we had some gains." The Black Tortoise team teacher who had asked the question had a faint smile. "Is that so? You have rested for 5 days and still have gains. That is not easy." His gaze shifted. "We are not as good as you. After 10 days of hard work, we only managed to catch 4 level 5 demonic beasts." "What?" Su Ming suddenly raised his head. The Black Tortoise team had gained very little. The Azure Dragon team had only lost 2 points to the Black Tortoise team. 2 points, any 2 level 5 demonic beasts would have been enough. Thinking of this, Su Ming glared at Su Yu with hatred. If they had not given up and persevered for a few more days, would it have been difficult to find another 2 level 5 demonic beasts? It was all because of their self-abandonment that the Azure Dragon team was in last place with a difference of 2 points. Yushan and Chunyun were also stunned. They sighed, their hearts filled with bitterness. They did not need to be in last place. Seeing their subtle expressions, the Black Tortoise team's Shi Chong heaved a sigh of relief. Luckily, the Azure Dragon team was still in last place. They had not gained much in 10 days and thought they were doomed. Who would have thought a miracle would happen? They really had to thank Su Yu and Little Demon Su, who had given up on training. Haha, Teacher Qin, don't be discouraged. It is not too late to work hard next year. Saying this, the group of people left with a satisfied smile. The members of the Azure Dragon team did not have a good expression. At this moment, the elder in the Great Hall drew a space enchantment in front of him, isolating him from the outside world. According to the team, send representatives to hand over the demonic beasts one by one. Everyone entered in an orderly manner, their expressions filled with anticipation. After the registration, the ranking would be officially announced. The higher the ranking, the more rewards they would receive. Especially the reward for the first place, which had always been the most desired by all the teams. No one knew who would receive the reward for this training. Finally, it was Su Yu's turn. I'll go. Qin Hui took out 2 space storage devices and entered them. Chapter 2392. After entering, the old man looked up and saw that it was the Azure Dragon group. His old eyes could not hide the contempt. Falling behind was not scary. What was scary was giving up and not working hard. Take it out. Therefore, the old man's attitude was much more indifferent. He was not as polite as he was to other groups. Qin Hui's expression was the same as usual. She placed 2 space storage devices in front of him. The old man picked up the space storage device in his left hand and probed inside. He said indifferently, 1 level 6 demonic beast, 2 level 5 demonic beasts, 12 points, a total of 102 points. He looked a little better. Currently, the second from the bottom was the Black Tortoise group with 104 points. If there were more than 2 level 5 demonic beasts in the other space storage device, they would be able to get rid of the last place. With a glimmer of expectation, the old man picked up the second space storage device and probed inside. What he saw was a dense crowd of demonic beasts. The number was too many to count. He was so shocked that he did not even notice the pen in his hand fall on the table. Where did these come from? The old man was stunned and asked a question without rhyme or reason. Because there were too many demonic beasts inside. The most shocking thing was that there was not even 1 level 5 demonic beast. The lowest level was level 6. There were several level 7 demonic beasts. Qin Hui said calmly, Deacon Li must be joking. The demonic beasts were, of course, caught. Why would someone give them to us? Only then did the old man realize that he had lost his composure. He quickly calmed down and said, Ahem, I was just asking. Just asking. As he spoke, he carefully counted the number and level of demonic beasts. After half a cup of tea's time, he wrote down in disbelief, Azure Dragon Group, 790 points, first place. Qin Hui's heart was beating fast. She left the barrier in satisfaction. Seeing that the Azure Dragon Group had not come out for a long time, the outside world could not help but be suspicious. What the hell? Even the first Qilin clan did not take such a long time. Could it be that Qin Hui is trying to bribe Deacon Li? Even so, it wouldn't take so long unless she sacrificed herself. Ahem, Deacon Li is famous for being upright and outspoken in the Eastern Region Divine Mansion. He wouldn't do such a thing, would he? As he spoke, Qin Hui came out with a flushed face under everyone's gaze. His strange expression immediately caused many people to speculate. Could it be that, for such a long time, they were really doing it inside? Little did he know that it was because Qin Hui was too excited. After the last few groups entered, the old man retracted the barrier. Everyone's expressions were solemn as they waited for the old man's announcement. The results have been tabulated. I will only announce the top 3 and the bottom 3. As for the rest, you can see for yourselves after the list is released, the old man said indifferently. Everyone was filled with anticipation, especially the purple-faced middle-aged man from the Chelan group. He stood with his hands behind his back, his eyes filled with confidence. According to the information he had, the Chelan group was firmly in first place without any suspense. Let's first announce the 3 from the bottom, the old man said, the third from the bottom, the Golden Crow group. Everyone's expressions were calm. The Golden Crow team had always been in the bottom 5, and it was normal for them to be ranked third from the bottom. Second from the bottom, the teachers and students of the Black Tortoise team smiled knowingly. They were, of course, in second place. This time, it could be said that he had narrowly escaped a calamity. They should let the Azure Dragon group have a taste of that painful punishment. The Black Phoenix group. However, what shocked the teachers and students of the Black Tortoise team was that they were not in second place. What's going on? We're the second from the bottom. Could it be that we accidentally beat the Golden Crow and the Black Phoenix group and became the fourth from the bottom? Is that why we're not announcing the rankings? The teachers and students were incredulous at the thought. 10 days ago, the Golden Crow and the Black Phoenix group had more points than them. Why were they ranked behind them now? First from the bottom. The old man paused on purpose and glanced at the Azure Dragon group. Many of the representatives looked at the Azure Dragon group with gloating eyes. Many teachers and students looked at them unkindly. This was the beginning of the Azure Dragon group's nightmare. Su Ming clenched his fists and lowered his head. Yushan, Chunyun, and the other 2 teachers also lowered their heads in shame, not daring to meet the eyes of others. They sighed in their hearts. Of course, they were the last from the bottom. The Black Tortoise group. The old man's voice was extremely penetrating as he said slowly. In an instant, the great hall was dead silent. Regardless of whether it was the gloating groups, the Black Tortoise group, or the Azure Dragon group, they were all stunned. What was going on? Shouldn't it be the Azure Dragon group? They had all given up on themselves and given up on the training. How could they not be the last from the bottom? The teachers and students of the Black Tortoise group were petrified, as if they had fallen from the clouds into the 18th level of hell. They were actually the last from the bottom. In the Azure Dragon group, the ashamed Yushan, Chunyun, and the rest suddenly raised their heads, their faces filled with disbelief. We are not the last from the bottom? Not even the third from the bottom? Yushan stammered. They were destined to be the last from the bottom, but the result was completely different from what they had expected. Chunyun was also filled with disbelief. She suddenly looked at Su Yu and Su Xiaomo. There was only one explanation for this situation. In the past 5 days, Su Yu and Su Xiaomo had hunted down many demonic beasts. Not only had they successfully gotten rid of the last from the bottom, but they had also gotten rid of the bottom 3. They had wrongly accused Su Yu and Su Little Demon. The reason why they had come back 5 days earlier was because they were already very confident. Count yourselves lucky, the elixir master of the White Tiger group said angrily. The purple-faced middle-aged man of the Chelan group glanced at the joyous faces of the Azure Dragon group teachers and students with disdain, shaking his head. The sorrow of the weak. So what if they got rid of the last place? They were still at the bottom. Even so, they were still extremely excited. If it was the Chelan group, they would definitely not be like this. Falling out of the top 5 would make them feel ashamed, let alone the last 5? He calmly retracted his gaze, looking at the old man, waiting for the top 3. No, the first place to be announced. I will now announce the top 3. The old man looked at the crowd. Third place, the White Tiger group. The elixir master froze, his brows slightly furrowing. 10 days ago, the White Tiger group was still in second place, 30 points behind the Oceanic Beast group. To think that 10 days later, they would be overtaken by the oceanic beast group. What a miscalculation. The purple-faced middle-aged man was also a little surprised. He threw a mocking look at the elixir master. Dan Haiching, you have to work hard in the next year. Don't be overtaken again next year, hee. While the crowd was discussing fiercely, the old man said again, second place. The Qilin group. It was not the oceanic beast group, but the Qilin group. What? The crowd was in an uproar, not daring to believe this result. The Qilin group, who was far ahead of everyone else, was actually in second place. Was there a mistake? Could it be that the oceanic beast group suddenly broke out in a short 10 days and kicked the Qilin group out of first place because they could not catch hundreds of demonic beasts? Isn't the oceanic beast group too powerful? 10 days ago, they were behind the Qilin group by 100 points. Maybe this is what it means to be well prepared. This time, the oceanic beast group is indeed a dark horse. I really did not expect them to be in first place. The crowd was boiling with excitement, all surprised by the unexpected result. The purple-faced middle-aged man stood there stiffly, unable to accept such an unexpected result. Dan Haiching could not help but laugh. Zi Xiaoyun, I'll say the same to you. Continue to work hard, don't be overtaken and lose the easily won first place. Hearing this, the purple-faced middle-aged man's face turned green and red. Finally, the first place of this trial is, the old man announced in a sonorous voice. The crowd was still chatting with each other and did not pay attention to him. Because they already knew the result, it was the oceanic beast group. It's the Azure Dragon group. As soon as the old man finished speaking, the whole world fell into silence. It was as if the river of time had suddenly been cut off, and time and space had been frozen forever. Everyone stopped talking and looked at each other, as if they were wondering if they had heard it wrong. It was not until the old man's voice echoed in the hall for the second time that they were instantly awakened. Wait, who? The Azure Dragon group? It was not the Oceanic Beast group, but the Azure Dragon group that had always been at the bottom? Is there a mistake? Could it be that something went wrong when they were tabulating the results and the total score was wrong? That should be it. Everyone looked at the old man, hoping that he could answer their questions. However, the old man's expression did not change, and he repeated, "The first place, the Azure Dragon group, is not wrong." Hearing the affirmative answer, the crowd was instantly in an uproar. How is that possible? 10 days ago, the Azure Dragon group was in last place. 10 days later, they are in first place. There is no possibility. There is definitely a problem with the ranking. Yes, there is a problem. The teachers and students were all in agreement. They could not accept the fact that the Azure Dragon group was in first place. Dan Haiching was the most surprised, and he said, "Deacon Lee, it's not that we are causing trouble, but this is a serious matter. Please announce their scores, and we will judge them." Deacon Lee smiled bitterly in his heart. He had already predicted this scene when the ranking was announced. "All right, I will announce the scores of the top 3, the old man said. The third place, the White Tiger Group, 480 points. The second place, the Qilin Group, 503 points. Zi Xiaoyun and Dan Haiching nodded, indicating that they had no objections to their scores. The first place, the Azure Dragon Group, 800 points. After announcing the results, Deacon Lee used his Path Lord's power to seal his ears. Because as soon as the old man finished speaking, the crowd exclaimed again. "What? 800 points? Ha ha ha, 800 points. 10 days ago, they only had 90 points. 10 days later, they have 800 points? I won't believe it even if you beat me to death. Wait, that Qin Hui stayed in the spatial barrier for a long time, and when she came out, she had a strange look on her face. Could it be? Humph. I really didn't expect that. I was just joking, but now it seems like it's true." Deacon Lee is a law enforcer of the East Region God Palace, but he made such a dirty deal in public. I will definitely report this matter to the higher-ups of the East Region God Palace. I will not tolerate those who openly cheat and take bribes. The crowd was agitated, like a barrel of explosives that had been ignited. Chapter 2393. Deacon Lee's expression was indifferent. He had already expected the crowd's doubts and guesses. If he were in their shoes, he would also question the fairness of the result. However, the more they talked, the more they doubted themselves. They even suspected that they had accepted a special deal from Qin Hui. He raised his eyebrows and slapped the hall above his head. Buzz, heaven and earth shook violently. A silent wave swept through the surroundings, causing pain in everyone's eardrums. Suyu was secretly surprised. The old man's cultivation level was probably at the later stage of the celestial realm, only one step away from the great venerable realm. Only then did they quiet down. Deacon Lee's old face turned cold. It's fine for you to question me, but the training is a sacred mission of the East Region Divine Manor. No one is allowed to doubt it. Whoever dares to spout nonsense will be punished by the iron law of the Divine Manor. There was no more noise. However, they were not convinced on the surface. They were all secretly cursing Deacon Lee for his shamelessness. I know what you are thinking. Deacon Lee's eyes were like torches, seeing through everyone's thoughts. So, I will convince you. As he spoke, the old man waved his palm and 2 space storage devices flew into the air, freezing them. See for yourself. The students' and teachers' eyes lit up. He dared to show the demonic beasts he had hunted. Then, it would be clear at a glance whether it was a fraud or not. Many curious gazes poured into the storage devices. What came into view were hundreds of level 6 and even level 7 demonic beasts. Impossible! Where did so many demonic beasts come from? In just 10 days, they caught hundreds of level 6 and 7 demonic beasts? This doesn't make sense. The crowd was in an uproar again. Showing the demonic beasts did not convince them. Instead, it made them even more doubtful. With the abilities of the students from the Green Dragon team, to be honest, catching 10 level 6 demonic beasts in 10 days is their limit. 100 is impossible. That's right. Under normal circumstances this would be impossible. Even the top 5 groups wouldn't be able to do this. Everyone, don't forget that there are 2 students from the Green Dragon team who returned 5 days earlier. In other words, is it possible for them to finish in 5 days? Deacon Lee's expression was indifferent as he shouted, "All of you, shut up. Facts speak louder than words. I don't know where their demonic beasts came from, and I don't need to know either. The rule of the trial is to capture demonic beasts at all costs, that's all." All the teachers and students could not accept the results of the Azure Dragon group, but they could not figure out the source of the demonic beast. Suyu took in everyone's expressions and secretly shook his head. What they couldn't do didn't mean others couldn't do it either. If the Eastern Region Divine Abode was full of such people, then it was nothing special. This is the end of the training. You can return to the East Region Divine Mansion now. Deacon Lee announced with a straight face. Everyone left the main hall one after another, each using their own methods to return to the Divine Abode. They were in groups of 3 to 5, discussing the extremely strange performance of the Azure Dragon team this time. In the end, there were still some people who paid attention to Su Yu and Su Little Demon. They tried every possible way to find out about their origins. However, Qin Hui and the other 2 kept their mouths shut, so they couldn't get any information about them. On the way back, Qin Hui's mood had never been this happy before. Yushan and Qin Yun's faces were also blooming with happiness. Our Azure Dragon group also had the chance to enjoy the first place reward. It's like a dream. Yushan couldn't contain her joy. Qin Yun nodded. I think, with the help of that thing, I might have a chance to break through to the middle stage of the celestial realm. Qin Hui's eyes were rippling, but she quickly realized the consequences. Her smile faded. We can't be blindly optimistic. Our performance this time will not be recognized by the other group. We might be provoked in the future. Remember to keep a low profile. The two teachers deeply agreed. The East Region Divine Abode was not just a manor, but an entire nebula. A total of 27 six-star civilizations were strung together like a bracelet. Each group was in charge of a civilization. Su Yu and the others did not immediately return to the Azure Dragon group. Instead, they went to the cloud in the center of the 27 civilizations with the top 5 outstanding groups, such as the Chilan group, White Tiger group, and Oceanic Beast group. That was where the higher-ups of the East Region Divine Abode were. CS Sanren would occasionally come there to inspect the situation of the East Region Divine Abode. The group entered the dense fog, and ancient trees floating in the universe came into view. Between the ancient trees, there was a very strange angle, vaguely forming a large formation. The Great Formation automatically absorbed the evil energy of the heavens and earth, gathering it in the center of the formation. One could see with the naked eye that there was a coiling dragon in the middle of the formation. The coiled dragon would. Qin Hui and the others looked excited. Deacon Li took out a key and handed it to Qin Hui. The Azure Dragon Group can go over. Thank you, Deacon Li. Qin Hui waved. Let's go, the Azure Dragon Group can have a taste of the coiled dragon wood. The coiled dragon wood was the reward for the champion. Su Yu sized up the coiled dragon wood curiously. He still did not know the true use of the coiled dragon wood. Until Emo Qinglong said enviously, I have to say that CS Sanren is an unsurpassed genius in certain aspects. What is the use of the coiled dragon wood? Su Yu asked. Emo Qinglong said, It is useless to you and me, but it is very useful to the living beings of the East region born from the evil energy. It can stimulate the evil energy in their bodies, turning it into Path Master's energy, and push their cultivation base forward. Su Yu was shocked. He immediately understood how powerful it was. Turning evil energy into Path Master's energy was no laughing matter. Because of the different attributes of the energy, it was impossible for them to be converted. For example, the desolation energy could never be converted into Path Master's energy. For CS Sanren to be able to do this, it was not an exaggeration to say that he was a genius in this aspect. Su Yu felt a sense of regret. If he had become a Path Master, he would have been able to get a share of the benefit. Unfortunately, suddenly, Su Yu let out a soft gasp of surprise, quietly touching the royal dragon sword in his robes. He could faintly feel the royal dragon sword trembling abnormally, just like when the royal dragon sword had encountered the ancestral dragon's remains. Why is this coiled dragon wood in the shape of a dragon? Su Yu asked casually. Emo Qinglong did not suspect anything. It was stolen from the Dragon Clan, of course. The previous Dragon Emperor of the Dragon Clan suddenly passed away, causing a short period of chaos and unrest in the Dragon Clan. Many forces took advantage of the chaos to reap some benefit. CS Sanren was one of them. He stole the coiled dragonwood from the Dragon Clan's treasury and modified it into a great treasure that could convert Path Master's energy. So it was the Dragon Emperor's treasure? But what did it have to do with the royal dragon sword? Speaking of which, it was strange. After Su Yu had obtained the royal dragon sword, he had not figured out its use as a treasure passed down through the generations of the Dragon Clan. Apart from activating the power within it, the royal dragon sword did not seem to have any special abilities. Looking at the coiled dragon wood and feeling the royal dragon sword trembling continuously, Su Yu felt the need to seriously explore the sword's mysteries. Chapter 2394. The group of people landed on the coiled dragon wood, and a shocking evil energy assaulted them. The evil energy was 10 times stronger than the outside world. Even Qin Hui and the others, who were born and raised in the East region, could not bear such a strong evil energy. Wisps of evil energy ignored the Path Master's power on the surface of their bodies, and entered their bodies through their pores. Their eyes were visibly scarlet, and they were filled with evil energy. Start cultivating immediately, or we will also be devoured by the evil energy. Qin Hui held the key given by Deacon Li and came to the tail of the coiled dragon wood. She inserted the key into a groove. With a click, the whole coiled dragon would seem to have come to life, and it started swimming around its body. The dragon's mouth opened abruptly, and a large amount of evil energy was sucked away. Then, the dragon's scales opened, and wisps of pure Path Master's power were released. Absorbing the evil energy and transforming it into Path Master's power was the magical effect of the coiled dragon wood after it had been modified. Qin Hui and the others immediately sat down cross-legged, greedily absorbing the Path Master's power to improve their cultivation. The Path Master's power was not very beneficial to Suyu. He walked back and forth on the coiled dragon wood, checking if there was anything special about it that could cause the royal scepter dragon sword to vibrate continuously. However, after a careful search, he found nothing. Did I overlook something? Suyu thought to himself, and dozens of possibilities appeared in his mind. Finally, with a flash of light, he placed his palm on the coiled dragon wood beneath his feet, and the 9-5 ice dragon energy was emitted from his palm. When the energy appeared, a very vague character appeared on the coiled dragon wood beneath Su Yu's palm. Sure enough, he increased the 9-5 ice dragon energy, and the character became clearer. It was a very ancient Dragon Clan character. It was shaped like a small dragon, and it was full of mystery. Suyu memorized it calmly, then moved his palm to another place. In the end, there was another Dragon Clan character 3 inches away. Suyu searched inch by inch, repeating the process repeatedly. 10 days later, when the evil energy around the coiled dragon wood was extremely thin, and the wood gradually stopped moving, Suyu finished his search. He had explored every inch of the coiled dragon wood, and he had obtained a total of 18,000 characters of Dragon Clan characters. It should be a well-hidden Dragon Clan's magic art, right? Suyu speculated based on his experience. In these 10 days, he had only managed to figure out all the characters. He did not have the time to organize them into a complete incantation. At this moment, 6 Downlord auras of varying strengths rose from the coiling dragon wood. 6 unique domain images floated in the air. Of the 6 domains, 3 were intermediate domains and 3 were elementary domains. The last 3 naturally belonged to the 3 students. However, what attracted Su Yu's attention the most was not the middle-grade realm of Qin Hui and the others, but the beginner realm of a student. The image of the domain was very strange. It was just an unusually monotonous golden ring. However, the ring gave off a sense of danger. On the other hand, Qin Hui and the other 2 who had grasped the intermediate domain could not compare to this domain. Suyu looked at the owner of the realm. It was the boy, Su Ming. Emo Qinglong stared at the boy as well. His eyes flickered with complicated emotions. Ha ha ha. I've finally broken through to the later stage of the sky human stage. Qin Hui raised her head skywards and laughed. There was an uncontrollable ecstasy in her voice. Yushan and Chunyun were also overjoyed. They had broken through to the middle stage of the sky human stage as they wished. The 3 students had all broken through to the middle stage of the fish dragon realm. The reward of the coiling dragon wood was a great benefit to them. As Qin Hui laughed, she did not forget where the reward had come from. She shot a grateful look at Suyu. When she realized that he was still a half-step Downlord, she could not help but sigh. It's a pity. It's all thanks to you that we can obtain the reward of the coiling dragon wood. However, you can't enjoy its benefits. Suyu did not think so. The hidden magic art on the coiling dragon wood was something even Xie Sanren had not discovered. Suyu obtaining it would most likely benefit him more than advancing a small level. Yushan, Chunyun, and the 2 students all shot grateful looks at Suyu. It was indeed thanks to Suyu that they had risen from the last place to the first place. Only Su Ming grunted disapprovingly. When my abilities become stronger, I can still get the first place. His inexplicable self-confidence made people laugh involuntarily. Suyu did not bother to argue with him. He calmly said, "Let's go back." He wanted to quickly piece the dragon inscriptions together and see what secrets were hidden on the coiling dragon wood. He wanted to know if it was related to the royal power dragon sword. Qin Hui nodded and led the group back to the civilization where the Azure Dragon group was. It was only when they returned that they discovered that there were several uninvited guests in their civilization. The three teachers' expressions darkened. Qin Hui sighed. What's coming can't be avoided. Teacher Yu, Teacher Chen, there will inevitably be a fierce battle later. Be mentally prepared. Yushan clenched her fists and laughed coldly. Just as well. I also want to find someone to test my newly achieved cultivation. The leader of the Azure Dragon team was always the last in line, so he had suffered a lot in the past. Today, they had dared to openly provoke the Azure Dragon group. They had to return the favor and let them know that the Azure Dragon group was not to be trifled with. The group followed the scent of the group and quickly landed in the center of the civilization. However, the expected confrontation did not happen. Instead, the teachers, led by Zi Xiaoyun and Dan Haiqing, smiled peacefully and greeted them politely. "Haha, Teacher Qin, you've finally returned. You've made us wait bitterly." The three teachers, who were about to lash out, felt as if they had punched cotton. They had strength, but there was nothing they could do. The other party had greeted them with a smile and had no ill intentions. They could not possibly hit him, could they? "What brings you to the Azure Dragon group?" Qin Hui sized up the people in front of her. Apart from Zi Xiaoyun from the Qilin group and Dan Haiqing from the White Tiger group, there were several other representatives from the top-ranked group. Looking at their friendly faces, Qin Hui's heart was as clear as a mirror. She knew that they did not come with good intentions. "We have joined forces to congratulate the Azure Dragon group on their victory and obtaining the first place in this year's training." Zi Xiaoyun gave off a refreshing feeling. It was the complete opposite of his previous attitude of looking down on the Azure Dragon group. Qin Hui replied smoothly, "Thank you." The topic came to an abrupt end. She did not continue the conversation, waiting to see how Zi Xiaoyun would continue. After a moment of awkwardness, Zi Xiaoyun said, "Actually, there's another reason why we're here." "Indeed, this was the main point of their visit, right?" "Please speak," Qin Hui said indifferently. Zi Xiaoyun said, "As you know, the evil aura in the Evil Lord Cemetery is about to erupt again. Our top-ranked groups will definitely receive an order to check on the cemetery's seal." Qin Hui nodded and said, "I know. In the past, after the training, the Evil Lord Cemetery would erupt. The top 10 groups would be required to bring their students to check on the cemetery. The Azure Dragon group had always been ranked last, so they had never been there. And every time the cemetery is inspected, it's a rather dangerous matter. Your Azure Dragon group is going there for the first time, so there should be many things you don't understand. Therefore, we're here to discuss matters of cooperation with the Azure Dragon group." Zi Xiaoyun's words made Qin Hui unable to refuse. The Evil Lord Cemetery was indeed a rather dangerous place. For the inexperienced Azure Dragon group, they should indeed listen to the experiences of the Qilin group and the others. But would he be so kind? "All right, since you're all here, let's just discuss it in my Azure Dragon group." Qin Hui felt helpless. She knew that they were up to no good, but she still had to be patient and discuss with them. The group moved to the Azure Dragon Hall of the Azure Dragon group and conversed in the hall. Suyu listened from the side and unexpectedly discovered that the so-called Evil Lord Cemetery was a mysterious place similar to the Glaze Ancient Cave in the West region. The Evil Lord Cemetery was the main reason why the East region was filled with evil aura all year round. At the beginning of the era, there were many almighty beings killing each other here. After they died, their bones were buried here, forming a cemetery called the Evil Lord Cemetery. As time went by, the bones gave birth to a powerful evil aura, and every year, it would erupt in large amounts to the outside world. Once it completely erupted, Not just the East region, but all 4 regions would be engulfed by the shocking evil aura. By then, the entire outer regions, from the Azure Dragon civilization to the West region's Sea of Constellations civilization, would be engulfed by the evil aura and become a world of death. Therefore, the first rulers of the 4 regions joined forces to put a seal on the evil lord's cemetery to ensure that the evil aura would not erupt. Every year, the evil aura that leaked out was only a 10,000th of the amount that erupted. Even so, after years and months, the East region would still be covered in evil aura, making it impossible for ordinary people to survive. This year, the Eastern region Immortal Abode would perform a routine inspection of the seals, and the task fell on the top 10 group. However, although they repeatedly mentioned how dangerous checking the seal was, they rarely mentioned the accidents that had happened in the past. The seal was placed by the first almighty beings. Even if there was danger, it was negligible. That's about the situation. If we divide the work according to this method, we should be safe, Zi Xiaoyun said. Qin Hui nodded as she pondered. Was she thinking too much? Were they really here just to discuss the division of work? Teacher Zi's idea is good, but first, we need to confirm if the teachers of the Azure Dragon Group are qualified for this job. Dan Haiqing smiled insincerely. The rest of the teachers looked over, their eyes full of different meanings. They had come after all. Qin Hui's eyes flickered and she said, "How do you plan to confirm?" "Haha, it's simple. We'll test the strength of the teachers and students of the Azure Dragon Group." Dan Haiqing finally revealed his intention. Qin Hui laughed coldly in her heart and said calmly, "Sure. How do we test them?" Seeing this, the other teachers all sighed in relief. They were not convinced that the Azure Dragon Group was able to get first place this time, so they deliberately planned to expose them. The cemetery inspection was a good opportunity. It's simple. Teacher Z will personally spar with the other 3 teachers. As for the students, Feng Qingyang from our White Tiger group will test their strength. Hearing this, Qin Hui's gaze changed slightly. She was not worried about Zi Xiaoyun. Now, she was also at the advanced stage of the heaven tier. Even if she was not as strong as Zi Xiaoyun, she would not be much weaker. Chapter 2395. Su Yu looked in surprise at the youth behind Dan Haiqing, who was holding a sword. He wore a simple gray robe, a rusty iron sword, and a bamboo hat. It was hard to imagine that this person was not a wandering martial artist, but a famous White Tiger team student. Moreover, Su Yu had not seen this person in his previous training. "Brother Su, I'm afraid we're in big trouble," a middle-stage fish dragon student whispered to Su Yu. From his tone, one could hear the deep fear in his voice. Su Yu did not reject his goodwill. "Is he special?" he asked. "Yes, very special. He's the #1 student in the White Tiger team, ranked 7th in the entire East region Divine Manor," the student said with fear and envy. The top 10 students in the East region Divine Manor can freely arrange their training. Hence, he did not appear during the last training. No wonder he was so unfamiliar. Su Yu thought for a moment, then nodded. He's average. There were about 200 students in the entire East region Divine Manor. Being ranked 7th was not a big deal. The student smiled bitterly. "Brother Su, please don't joke. Feng Qingyang is at the early stage of the celestial realm, and he has a powerful ancient iron sword. His overall strength is at the middle stage of the celestial realm." Only then did Su Yu take a few glances at Feng Qingyang, slowly nodding his head and saying, "Yes, then I really have to be slightly more serious." The student was stunned, looking at Su Yu as if he was a monster. He dared to say he needed to be a little more serious with Feng Qingyang? Was he confident, or was he too arrogant? "All right, I'll have to rely on Brother Su later." The student cupped his fists, looking at Su Yu strangely before returning to Su Ming and the rest. Su Ming heard the conversation between the two of them and curled his lips in disdain. **T. Let's see if Feng Qingyang has the ability to fight back. On the other side, Qin Hui looked at Su Yu worriedly. After getting a nod from Su Yu, she said, "Sure. Let our teacher go first." Zi Xiaoyun let out a long laugh. He took a step and soared into the sky as he shouted, "Who wants to go first? Me." Chen Yun clenched her fists and flew into the sky. The two of them looked at each other and began to exchange pointers with a tacit understanding. Chen Yun released the power of a Tao Lord at the mid-stage of the Heaven tier, and even took out her Tao artifact and domain. Zi Xiaoyun took a look and chuckled. "Not bad. Middle stage Heaven tier. You've improved greatly compared to before." This condescending tone contained a hint of contempt. "Teacher Z, you're still the same as always, not making any progress." Chen Yun mocked and took the initiative to attack. Her Tao artifact and domain attacked simultaneously. Zi Xiaoyun only smiled and quickly dove down. He couldn't even be bothered to utilize his Tao artifact and domain, and he completely relied on his extremely powerful Tao Lord energy to crush down. Puff! In a single exchange, Chen Yun's domain was broken, and his Tao artifact was sent flying. He was sent flying on the spot, and blood spurted out from all over his body. It was just a face-to-face encounter. Qin Hui's pupils constricted. Zi Xiaoyun's Tao Lord power was much denser than before. Shaking his head, Zi Xiaoyun said, "With this level of strength, it's hard for him to take on such a great responsibility." Next, the teachers and students whispered to each other in cooperation, which made Chen Yun feel ashamed. The confidence that came with the breakthrough was completely wiped out. Yushan gritted her teeth and flew into the sky. "Let me have a taste of your strength." He was also at the middle stage of the Heaven tier, and with his Tao artifact and domain, his strength was comparable to Chen Yun's. The result could be imagined. It was still a single punch, and Yushan was knocked out on the spot. Not only that, Zi Xiaoyun had even secretly used his hidden force to not only knock her out, but he'd even shattered her dress, causing her to be in a state of disarray. Seeing this, Qin Hui angrily went up and caught her body with her Tao Lord power. She glared at him. "Zi Xiaoyun, don't you think this is too despicable?" Although she knew that they were purposely looking for trouble, humiliating a person like this was not something a late-stage Heaven tier Tao Lord should do. Zi Xiaoyun calmly said, "I didn't do it on purpose." She can only blame herself for being too weak. Qin Hui put Yushan down and was about to rush into the sky. However, Mo Qingdao crisply said, "Teacher, go all out. There's no need to be afraid." As he spoke, Qin Hui's 9-death demon heart suddenly jumped, and a wave of demonic qi flowed through her body. Under this demonic qi, Qin Hui could clearly feel that her Tao Lord power had become violent and full of destructive power. This was because Mo Qingdao had fused the demonic qi into his Tao Lord power. Qin Hui was delighted, and she calmly nodded. "Don't worry, teacher will go all out." After saying this, she stomped on the ground, and the entire Azure Dragon civilization shook. The teachers and students, who were caught off guard, could not stand steadily, and they hurriedly flew up, looking extremely disheveled. At the same time, Qin Hui turned into a ray of light and instantly appeared in front of Zi Xiaoyun. Zi Xiaoyun was shocked by her abnormal speed, and he punched out without hesitation. Bang! However, what he got in response was an even more domineering punch from Qin Hui. Thud, thud, thud! The teachers and students were in an uproar. Zi Xiaoyun was actually forced to retreat. More than half of his robes were torn, and the crown on his head had also fallen off. His long hair was scattered, and he looked especially disheveled. "You!" Zi Xiaoyun was extremely shocked, not daring to believe Qin Hui's strength. He had expected that after Qin Hui cultivated with the coiling dragon wood, there was a possibility that she could break through to late-stage Heaven tier. However, Qin Hui, who had just broken through, was not a match for his punch at all. However, in this exchange, the strength of her Tao Lord power was even above his. It was simply unimaginable. Zi Xiaoyun, you've been stuck at late-stage heaven tier for so many years. Why are you still at this level? You've really disappointed me, as a latecomer. Qin Hui sneered. The calm expression on Zi Xiaoyun's face had long disappeared, and it was replaced by a hint of gloominess. It's too early to say that. Boom! He released all of his Tao Lord power, and he also fully activated his Tao artifact and domain, preparing to deal with Qin Hui, whose strength had greatly increased. Qin Hui was still not afraid. The only advantage that Zi Xiaoyun had over her was his dense Tao Lord power. Now, this advantage was gone. Did she still need to be afraid of him? She welcomed him fearlessly, and the two of them battled in the vast star domain. The teachers and students on the civilization platform stared at the abnormally intense battle, and their hearts were filled with shock. This was because the battle was completely one-sided. Zi Xiaoyun was forced to retreat again and again. Every time they exchanged blows, the Tao Lord would spit out blood. After 100 exchanges, his mouth was already full of blood. However, Zi Xiaoyun was extremely unwilling to accept this. He was like a ferocious beast, fighting crazily. At this moment, there was no trace of his usual elegance and calmness. However, no matter how he fought, Qin Hui was still able to deal with him with ease, injuring him again and again. In the end, a Tao artifact smashed down, smashing Zi Xiaoyun's body until he spat out blood. He fell back to the civilization like a meteor, smashing out a huge crater on the ground. Teacher! Teacher Zi! Many teachers and students rushed over and fished out Zi Xiaoyun, who was beaten half to death. Zi Xiaoyun's gaze was weak, but his heart was filled with endless unwillingness and unwillingness. He was a teacher ranked in the top 3. How could he be defeated in such a humiliating manner by a teacher ranked lower than him? This was a great humiliation. Qin Hui floated down. She was only slightly panting, and there was not a single injury on her body. What infuriated Zi Xiaoyun even more was that after Qin Hui landed, she said indifferently, "Teacher Zi, you have the cheek to test others with just this bit of strength. Look, you were beaten half to death because of a moment of carelessness. You are truly ignorant and fearless." Zi Xiaoyun, who was already extremely enraged, spat out another mouthful of blood and fainted on the spot. Many teachers and students looked at Qin Hui with dissatisfaction. Dan Haiqing was the first to bear the brunt. He criticized, "Teacher Qin, this is a spar, not a life-and-death battle. Why did you attack so viciously?" Qin Hui did not think much of it and said, "If you're not blind, you should be able to see that Zi Xiaoyun was the one who attacked viciously. He injured 2 of our Azure Dragon Team's teachers one after another. Not only that, but he also went all out to fight just now. Why was I the one who attacked viciously instead?" "Qin Hui, don't try to slander us. The 2 teachers were just too weak and were severely injured because of carelessness. You did it deliberately." Dan Haiqing rebuked angrily. Qin Hui chuckled. "By the same logic, you can't blame me for attacking viciously. You can only blame Zi Xiaoyun for being too weak." The moment she said that, many teachers and students became agitated and started criticizing her. "You're being unreasonable. Qin Hui, as a teacher, how can you lie through your teeth? You're too much. How can you treat your colleagues like this? How disappointing." Looking at the familiar scene, the corners of Su Yu's mouth twitched slightly. Could it be that the teachers of the East Region Divine Palace were all made from the same mold? When he first met Qin Hui, she must have been lying through her teeth too. "All of you, shut up." Qin Hui frowned slowly. She raised her voice and shouted. Her powerful Path Master's power suppressed all the voices in the area. "If you're not convinced, come out and fight me. Don't be so noisy here." Suddenly, the voices in the area weakened rapidly. With the combat power that Qin Hui had displayed, only Dan Haiqing could fight her, but he might not be able to win. Who would dare to come out and fight her? Since there isn't anyone, then shut your mouth and save yourself from being noisy and annoying. Qin Hui had never been so domineering. She felt extremely comfortable. Many years had passed, and there had been times when she had rebuked the world. This feeling was too beautiful. However, as the demonic energy in her body gradually returned to the nine-death demon heart, the powerful feeling gradually subsided. Only then did Qin Hui calm down. This was not her true ability. In terms of ability, she could only be considered an above-average teacher. Cough cough, since we've tested the teachers, let's look at the students, Qin Hui said, changing the topic. The teachers and students were naturally unhappy with the results of the test. They had come today to suppress the arrogance of the Azure Dragon group and force them back to reality. Who would have thought that they would be the ones being suppressed? In terms of the teachers, the Azure Dragon group had indeed produced a teacher who was ridiculously strong. Next was the students' level. Dan Haiqing's expression was solemn. Feng Qingyang, you go. Chapter 2396. His words were calm and concise. But the forceful confidence and aura he exuded made it hard for others to look at him directly. The teachers and students stared at Feng Qingyang, their eyes filled with admiration and admiration. As a student, his overall abilities had already caught up to the teachers at the bottom of the rankings. If he could successfully enter an 8-star civilization, he would definitely become a famous person in the future. Su Ming and the other two had stern expressions. Their opponent was Feng Qingyang. Even if they joined forces, it would be difficult for them to defend against him. But since things had already come to this, they could not reject him. All right, let's attack together. Su Ming took the lead, looking toward Su Yu. But Su Yu ignored him, silently standing at the side. Su Ming thought to himself, they are facing a great enemy, yet they are still isolating themselves. They really do not understand the bigger picture. Little did they know that in Su Yu's eyes, Feng Qingyang was not worth joining forces against. If they wanted to join forces, then so be it. It would be good for him to observe Feng Qingyang's steel sword from the side. 3 against 1, but Su Yu could clearly feel that Feng Qingyang's aura was stronger. Su Ming displayed his own realm, a strange ring of light. This ring of light immediately attracted the attention of a few teachers, including Dan Haiqing. Their gazes were extremely strange. There was envy and desire. Su Yu's expression changed when he noticed this scene. Was there more to Su Ming's realm than met the eye? Feng Qingyang's expression was indifferent as he faced the combined attacks of 3 people. He did not even unsheath his sword, only showing them the scabbard. One move to finish them off. Su Ming and the rest felt humiliated. They were all students of the East Region Divine Manor, but the difference between them was like heaven and earth. Go! Su Ming and the others' pride was stimulated, and they all attacked. Feng Qingyang did not say a word. He held the scabbard in his hand and lightly swept it in front of him. Frost! Creak! In an instant, the area in front of Feng Qingyang froze into ice. Su Ming and the other 2 were like ice sculptures, frozen in an instant. Their postures were still in a state of attack, but at this moment they could not move at all. The difference in strength was clear. The 3 of them could not last more than 1 move against Feng Qingyang. Next, Feng Qingyang said indifferently. Su Yu stepped into the center of the arena, completely ignoring the remnants of the ice as he passed. He arrived in front of Feng Qingyang. Sensing that something was amiss, Feng Qingyang lifted his head to look at Su Yu, as well as Mo Qingdao, who was on his back. 2 against 1. All right, 1 move. Feng Qingyang said calmly. Just like before, he waved his sword once again. Frost! Another wave of frigid air rushed over. Feng Qingyang swung his sword and sheathed it. He did not even look at the result before silently turning his head and walking towards Dan Haiqing. He said indifferently, Next time, don't look for me for such a boring spar, it's a waste of time. However, he noticed that Dan Haiqing's eyes were still fixed on the arena. His eyes were filled with surprise. Feng Qingyang was astonished. He stopped in his tracks and looked behind him. The scene in front of him caused his expression to change slightly. The frosty cold air that was stirred up froze 30 feet away from Suyu. Yes, solidification. An arc-shaped sword chi froze in front of him. Suyu, on the other hand, was completely unharmed. He extended a finger and casually tapped on the solidified sword energy. Crack! The icy cold air that froze everything shattered with a crash. He lifted his eyes and looked at Feng Qingyang calmly. You left after releasing that sword. I thought you were going to admit defeat. As he spoke, he tapped the tip of his foot and a shred of 9-5 ice dragon energy swept forward. Feng Qingyang's expression changed. He unsheathed his sword. A half-broken, rusty sword was unsheathed with a dull thud. The tip of the sword swept across. The cold light was like the moon, cold and threatening. Lung Yu. The world suddenly darkened, and a moonlight flashed, shattering everything within its range into dust from the inside out. The ground beneath his feet was sliced into pieces by the moonlight, revealing a vast empty space. However, what caused Feng Qingyang's expression to change was that Suyu stood at his original position, not moving an inch. He merely lifted his index and middle fingers, using his sword fingers to block in front of him, blocking the moonlight sword energy. How is this possible? The ones who cried out in shock were not Feng Qingyang, but Dan Haiqing and the other teachers. They knew the power of Feng Qingyang's sword. It was definitely the power of someone at the middle stage of the heaven realm. Even they had to be careful when dealing with it. However, Suyu had easily neutralized it with 2 fingers. What kind of earth-shattering ability was this? They had never expected a mere student like Suyu to display abilities that were on par with Yushan and Qinyun. Feng Qingyang used the third sword immediately, Dan Haiqing urged. However, Feng Qingyang ignored him. He stared at Suyu for a long time, then took off his bamboo hat, revealing a cold and skinny face. He sheathed his sword and bowed to Suyu, saying, I have lost. Suyu was surprised, looking at Dan Haiqing. Your teacher said that you still have a third sword, why don't you use it? Feng Qingyang shook his head. There is no need. You blocked 2 of my moves without even using a single move. I have already lost. He had a whole new level of respect for Feng Qingyang. He had thought that Feng Qingyang was an arrogant person, but to think that he was someone who was willing to admit defeat. I was just lucky, thank you for letting me win, Suyu calmly said. Feng Qingyang nodded. I hope that we will have the opportunity to work together in the cemetery. After saying this, he ignored Dan Haiqing's rage, once again putting on his bamboo hat and leaving expressionlessly. Qin Hui heaved a sigh of relief. Suyu's strength was beyond her expectations. He had forced the famous Feng Qingyang to lower his head and admit defeat without even using a single move. Haha, looks like our Green Dragon team is still up to the task of inspecting the cemetery. What do you guys think? Many teachers and students who had come in a threatening manner returned in low spirits, and all of them returned with a bellyful of sulkiness. After sending them off and sending Su Ming and the rest away, Qin Hui's smile disappeared. She bowed towards Suyu and Emo Qinlong, saying, Thank you for your help, masters. If not for you, the Green Dragon Group would have suffered great humiliation. Without their help, both the teachers and students would have suffered a crushing defeat. We are all in the same boat, Suyu calmly said. Qin Hui was extremely grateful. Ever since she had met Suyu and his group, her and her teacher's fate had changed drastically. She had to thank the 2 of them. The most important thing now is to prepare for the trip to the cemetery. Suyu creased his brows. He was not very interested in the evil Grandmaster's cemetery. But he had not thought of a way to take the item from the evil Sanrin, so he could only suppress his impatience for now. There was still a month before the trip to the cemetery. Suyu immediately chose to go into seclusion to study the 18,000 dragon characters. With so many dragon characters, it was not an easy task to piece them together into a complete set of secret arts. Activating time acceleration, Su Yu spent close to a month before he finally managed to sort out the sequence and complete it. 9-5 respect technique? Su Yu muttered softly, his eyes filled with uncontrollable joy. This was a technique personally created by the dragon ancestor. Its use was to control the dragon's sovereign sword and become the dragon ancestor. Once the cultivation was complete, the sword could summon the dragons of the world. Anyone who met the dragons of the sword would not dare disobey. Even the dragon emperor would have to lower his noble head in the face of the dragon's sovereign sword. Looks like I can make two preparations, Su Yu thought to himself. On one hand, he could remove the mark, and on the other, he could try to control the dragon's sovereign sword to see if it could deal with the scheming dragon emperor. But the 9-5 respect technique was personally created by the dragon ancestor. How could it be so easy to cultivate it? Su Yu could only comprehend it bit by bit. Mr. Su, time is up. Outside the door, Qin Hui and the others were already waiting. Su Yu opened the stone door and followed them to the cemetery. Along the way, they piloted the flying treasures while he focused on comprehending the 9-5 respect technique. Half a month later, Su Yu slowly woke up, his mind a mess. The difficulty of comprehending this technique was much more difficult than he had expected. So far, he had not grasped a single clue. Mr. Su, the evil Grandmaster's cemetery is just ahead. Please be careful of the evil energy, Qin Hui reminded him. Actually, Su Yu knew they were near the evil Grandmaster's cemetery even without her reminder. The 9-5 ice dragon energy on the surface of his body had an additional layer of gray substance. It was all the evil energy that had been blocked by the 9-5 ice dragon energy. Looking up, at the end of his line of sight, a cemetery floating in the galaxy came into view. Many ancient tombs were lying in a messy manner in the middle of it. Endless evil energy shrouded the sky above the cemetery. One could faintly hear a terrifying sound coming from the cemetery. It sounded like sharp bones scratching in the coffins. It also sounded like the whispers of hidden evil spirit. Su Ming shuddered. Rumor has it that many ancient skeletons are still alive in the evil Grandmaster's cemetery. I also heard that they are constantly trying to rush out of the cemetery. The three students were trembling, and Qin Hui and the others were not much better off. There were too many legends about the evil Grandmaster cemetery, and many of them were especially terrifying. It was their first time here, so it was inevitable that they would panic. Qin Hui forced herself to calm down and said, "There is no need to panic. The evil Grandmaster cemetery is jointly sealed by the first-generation Almighties. Even if those skeletons are still alive, what can they do?" Even so, they were filled with unease. They arrived at the entrance of the cemetery. At the entrance, Zi Xiaoyun, Dan Haiqing, and the others had already arrived with their students. When enemies met, their eyes burned with hatred. Zi Xiaoyun glared at Qin Hui. His right fist, which was hidden in his sleeve, clenched and clenched, showing his inner resentment. Qin Hui was not afraid. She walked over without looking sideways. She said, "Sorry, we are late. Let's go." Dan Haiqing stared at Qin Hui coldly and said, "Let's go." The evil Grandmaster cemetery was surrounded by ancient seals that could not be passed through. Only the entrance gate allowed living creatures to enter. As soon as they entered, a shocking evil energy assaulted them. Su Yu's 9-5 ice dragon energy almost failed to defend against it. He looked at Qin Hui and the others. Their expressions were grave as they used the defensive barriers of the Path Master's strength. According to our previous division of labor, we will be in charge of our respective areas. Carefully check whether the seals of each tomb are broken. After Dan Haiqing finished speaking, he brought the students to the southwest corner. Qin Hui brought Su Yu to the northern region. Su Yu surveyed the surroundings. He vaguely noticed that, in the center of the cemetery, there were a few tombs that were obviously higher than the other cemeteries. "Whose tombs are those?" Su Yu asked. Chapter 2397. Qin Hui followed his gaze, her eyes filled with respect. Those are all cenotaphs. Rumor has it that they belong to some of the 8 great ancient gods. 8 ancient gods? Su Yu's pupils shrank. Ever since he came to the great beginning realm, he had rarely heard news about the 8 great ancient gods. Now that they had come to the Evil Lord's cemetery, they were fortunate enough to see their cenotaphs. Are you sure? Su Yu was surprised. If it was a cenotaph, it meant that the ancient gods had already died. Qin Hui was baffled. This is recorded in the Eastern Region Divine Abode. Su Yu stared at the cenotaphs, intending to go over and take a look. What he wanted to see the most was whether or not ancient god Nine Dragon was among them. It's better if you don't go there easily, Qin Hui reminded. The cemetery in the middle area has always been the responsibility of Evil Sanren. We are not allowed to go near it. Even if you get close, the demonic energy in those areas is still ridiculously strong. If you go even a little closer, your mind will be corroded by the demonic energy. She cast a fearful glance at the teachers and students who had not yet gone far. She was afraid that they would learn of Su Yu's intentions. If Su Yu really went and they reported him to Xie Sanren, he would be in danger. Su Yu suppressed the expectations in his heart and slowly nodded. Let's do our part. They arrived at the northern region of the graveyard. There were a total of 8,000 tombs in the northern region, and they needed to confirm if the seal had been damaged. After assigning the tombs that they were responsible for, they went to inspect the tombs. Su Yu was assigned 2,000 tombs to inspect. Patriarch Heavenstar Tai Jinshin, Rootless Ant Immortal Yun Lilu, East Pole Battle Groups Zhao Wuji. Su Yu recited the names on the tombstones one by one, his heart filled with nostalgia. These were all the heroes of the world when the world was first created. Each one of them was an almighty being whose name shook the world. Now, he could only turn into a pile of yellow soil, lying quietly on the ground. Mo Qinglong sighed and said, "If one is unable to transcend life and death, one will forever be a speck of dust in this world." Su Yu was deeply convinced. Death was the coldest and most merciless order in the world. Even he would have to die sooner or later. Sighing in his heart, Su Yu continued his inspection. Suddenly, he noticed that one of the tombs in front of him was moving. His heart raced, and he immediately went forward to investigate. He discovered that it was a tomb named North Star Great Emperor. At this moment, the soil covering the grave was being shaken off bit by bit, as if there was something underneath that was constantly hitting the soil and trying to break out. When he looked at the seal on the tomb, he saw that a thumb-sized gap had appeared, preventing it from being activated in time. He immediately took out some array formation materials and repaired the gap. Qila, after the formation was completely repaired, it immediately began to operate, releasing an extremely dense wave of righteous energy that fiercely pressed down on the tomb. Dong, it was as if the lid of a coffin had been opened and closed again. The sound echoed in the grave. Then, there was a rapid creaking sound. Su Yu could clearly hear the sound of the skeleton inside scratching the coffin lid. There really was a living creature inside. However, the main point was not the tomb, but the seal. According to Qin Hui, checking the seal was a routine procedure. Since the appearance of the Evil Lord's cemetery, there had never been any signs of the seal being broken. Su Yu started to wonder if his luck was extremely good, as he had actually coincidentally bumped into him. There are more over there. Mo Qingdao's senses were far superior to Su Yu's, so he immediately noticed the abnormality. Su Yu swept his gaze across the area, his heart trembling. He immediately rushed over. In the end, he discovered that the soil of one of the tombs had been shaken off. An extremely battered bone claw reached out from within, continuously searching. Seeing this scene, Su Yu felt his scalp go numb. He used 9-5 Ice Dragon energy to freeze the bone claw, then stuffed it back. He then quickly repaired the array, restoring it to its original state, suppressing the evil bones within the tomb. However, just as this tomb was stabilized, he discovered that there was a problem with another tomb. Su Yu did not dare hesitate, immediately rushing over to deal with it. Just like that, in just half a day, Su Yu had quickly checked 2,000 tombs, and managed to repair a dozen broken seals in time. After the inspection, Su Yu rushed back to the rendezvous point. In the end, he discovered that no one had returned. Ding, ding, suddenly, the sound of an intense battle could be heard from afar. Something had happened. He rushed over and realized that it was the student who had introduced Feng Qingyang to him. He had expressed his goodwill to him before. At this moment, his face was pale as he faced off against a tall skeleton. The skeleton was shrouded in evil energy, its body covered in dense red hair, its eyes filled with scarlet flames. He held a bone knife formed from evil energy, slashing at the student. This strike probably had the strength of someone at the early stage of the heaven realm. The poor student was only at the fish-dragon realm. How could he withstand this strike? After a few exchanges, half of his body had been sliced off, his life hanging by a thread. Su Yu clapped his palm. An extremely dense 9-5 ice dragon energy descended from the sky, freezing the skeleton into ice on the spot. He then quickly rushed over, throwing it into the already excavated tomb and sealing it again. "Brother Su, thank you, thank you." The student had been saved, and was extremely grateful as he healed himself. Su Yu looked around, his heart sinking. Something was not right. The seal of the evil master cemetery had never changed. Why was it continuously damaged? If it had naturally decayed, how could it be so coincidental? After waiting for the student to recover, Su Yu said, "Ignore the cemetery for now. Immediately meet up with the other students. If they are in danger, inform me immediately." Su Yu tossed him a jade talisman, then flew toward where Qin Hui and the rest were. As expected, when he found Qin Hui, he was also battling an evil skeleton that had crawled out of the tomb. Around Qin Hui there were already 3 or 4 broken skeletons. Break! Qin Hui sent a Dao artifact flying, crushing the evil skeleton to the ground. "Are you all right?" Seeing that Su Yu was safe, Qin Hui heaved a sigh of relief. Emo Qinglong let out a cold grunt. "With me here, will he be all right? Let's worry about the others." The two split up, immediately searching for the others. In the end, when they found them, they were all entangled by evil skeletons. Among them, teacher Chen Yun was the most pitiful, having died multiple times. If not for the 9-death demon heart, which had saved her 4 times, she would have long since become minced meat. Yushan was not much better, also dying under the attacks of the evil skeletons. But the most unlucky one was one of the 3 students. He had been killed on the spot by the evil skeletons, and could not be more dead. As for Su Ming, when Su Yu found him, he had used a halo domain to successfully escape from the pursuit of a group of evil skeletons. "Leave the cemetery immediately," Su Yu, who had a bad premonition, said immediately. As Qin Hui fled, his heart was filled with hatred. "It's Zi Xiao Yun and the rest." Yushan was also filled with rage. "Yes. It must be them. They must have done something to the area we were in charge of. Otherwise, how could all the seals have been damaged so recently? Those seals could not have been damaged earlier, but they had been damaged while they were inspecting the area. How could it be possible that someone had not done something intentionally?" Chapter 2398. Although Zi Xiaoyun and the others wanted to take revenge on the Azure Dragon Group, it was too irrational to do something to the Evil Lord Cemetery. If there was even the slightest clue that they were the culprit, the consequences would be worse than death. Messing with the Evil Lord Cemetery was not just a normal destruction. It was a threat to the safety of the entire outer realm. Even if Xie Sanren protected them, the almighties of the other 3 realms would not let them go. Zi Xiaoyun and the others would not do something like making the whole world their enemy if they had any brains. Sure enough, when they rushed to the entrance of the cemetery, they saw that Zi Xiaoyun and the other 9 groups of teachers and students were all wounded, and their numbers were reduced by more than 30%. Among them, There were even a few groups of teachers who had not returned. What did you do? Zi Xiaoyun's eyes were red as he stared at Qin Hui. Why did the evil lord's cemetery change so quickly when you arrived? Qin Hui had lost a student, and she had guessed that Zi Xiaoyun was the culprit. Now, she was being questioned by Zi Xiaoyun. How could she remain calm? You are making false accusations. You did something to the evil lord's cemetery, didn't you? Qin Hui rebuked angrily. You're talking nonsense. Zi Xiaoyun roared. Fellow colleagues, we've been inspecting the evil lord's cemetery together for so many years, and we've never made any mistakes. It's only this time that the Azure Dragon Group joined us and a disaster immediately befell us. Would you believe us if we said that they weren't behind this? The rest of the teachers and students looked over, their eyes cold. The Azure Dragon Group was indeed too suspicious. Qin Hui laughed angrily. Did I harm my own students? Zi Xiaoyun pointed at himself and the others angrily. You only lost one student. Do you know how many we lost? 3 teachers and 9 students all died in there. Qin Hui was speechless. In fact, if Su Yu had not saved them in time, everyone except her would have died in there. But in the face of these aggressive people, Qin Hui's explanation would not have any effect. Everyone, now is not the time to be suspicious of each other. The cemetery is in a mess. If we do not control it, the entire evil lord's cemetery will go out of control, Su Yu said with a frown. At a time of life and death, there was still internal strife. Zi Xiaoyun's eyes were like lightning as he scolded. Shut up, who are you to interrupt? However, as soon as the words left his mouth, a cold gust of wind descended, causing the crowd to shiver in fear. Taking a closer look, a skinny old man shrouded in nefarious energy appeared at the entrance of the graveyard with his hands behind his back. His aged eyes gazed into the depths of the graveyard. His appearance made the faces of all the teachers and students change. They all knelt down on one knee and said, "Greetings, evil Sanren." What? Evil Sanren? The man in front of him was the #1 evil cultivator in the East Domain, Xie Sanren? Zi Xiaoyun, you're very disappointing, the evil Sanren said without even turning his head. At a critical moment, you're not even as good as a young lad. His words were very calm, but Zi Xiaoyun trembled in fear. He quickly kowtowed and said, I know I was wrong. The evil Sanren did not say anything else. He squinted his old eyes, looked around the cemetery, and said coldly, It is a pleasure to have a friend come from afar. He stepped lightly on the ground, and many of the evil bones that were about to break out of the ground were suppressed back into their graves. When Su Yu saw this, he could not help but feel fearful. Compared to the Dragon Emperor, this kind of power was not much weaker. However, in contrast, a majestic force that was comparable to the evil Sanren erupted from the ancient god's cenotaph. At the same time, a mysterious aura was flowing. Old Xie, this graveyard is not yours. What's wrong with me coming here? The evil Sanren laughed. It's nothing. It's just that if you want to release the evil beings in the graveyard, you'll have to ask for my permission. As soon as he finished speaking, the evil Sanren's figure flashed and appeared in front of the ancient god's cenotaph. Immediately, the aftermath of an earth-shattering battle erupted. The aftermath alarmed the great spell of the entire graveyard, causing it to buzz loudly. Surrounded by colorful lights, the evil Sanren and an old man in a long robe with unkempt hair and a dirty face fought fiercely. When the two of them fought, their battle power was close to Master Xian's. Many of the evil bones that had come out of the ground were turned into dust by the shock waves of the battle. Su Yu and the others, who were watching the battle from afar, had no choice but to leave the graveyard to avoid being affected. The two of them fought for a long time. Tacitly, they did not destroy the graveyard. Instead, they gradually moved to the depths of the universe. Before they left, the evil Sanren shouted without turning his head, Suppress the graveyard immediately, no matter the cost. As he finished speaking, he threw down 2 shining golden creatures. The two creatures had lifeless eyes. They had no spirituality at all, but the cultivation levels that erupted from them were shocking. They were actually at the great venerable realm. Are these puppets? Suyu asked uncertainly. Although they were puppets, they were living creatures. But if they were living creatures, they did not have the consciousness that living creatures should have. They are half-living puppets, Mo Qinglong said enviously. Mo Qinglong said enviously, half a living being, half a puppet. That boy called Su Ming is also a half-living puppet. Su Ming? When Suyu had first met Su Ming, he had been surprised. He was only a teenager, but he already had the cultivation of the fish-dragon realm. It was unbelievable. So he was a puppet. A half-living puppet transplants the remnant soul of an ancient almighty into the body of a dead creature. With the help of the remnant soul, the body's cultivation is like divine help, allowing it to break through without any bottleneck. When it breaks through to a certain level, the remnant soul's consciousness will be erased, and it will become a puppet. Suyu suddenly understood. But this was easier said than done. How could the remnant soul of an ancient almighty be easy to deal with? A moment of carelessness could cause a backlash. Moreover, to transplant it, he would have to order it to cultivate according to his plan. With two puppets, suppressing the graveyard will not be a problem, Mo Qinglong said slowly. Next, the surviving teachers and students worked together with the great venerable puppet to completely sweep through the graveyard, suppressing all the evil bones that had escaped and repairing the hundreds of damaged formations. Suyu's heart skipped a beat. He pointed to the cenotaph of the ancient god and said, "Do we need to inspect that place?" Zi Xiaoyun hesitated. The evil Sanren had made it clear that they were not to go near that place. But the current situation was special. Who knew if that mysterious person had tampered with the cenotaph? If something used by the ancient god was released, it would be a disaster. Hence, no one refuted Suyu. Roar! At that moment, a low roar of a beast came from near the cenotaph. The roar shook one's soul, making one feel extremely uneasy. The great venerable realm? Zi Xiaoyun swallowed hard. Suyu seized the opportunity and raised his voice. If we hesitate any longer, when that evil creature rushes out, the two puppets may not be able to deal with it. Once it destroys the graveyard and releases all the evil creatures, we will all be finished. With that said, who would still dare to hesitate? After exchanging glances, they immediately followed behind the puppets and hurried to the central graveyard. Suyu could not help but feel slightly nervous. His emotions were complicated. Chapter 2399. They hoped to obtain useful information from the cenotaph of the ancient god of Jilong and learn many secrets about the ancient god realm of Jilong. They did not hope for it, because if the cenotaph was here, it would mean that he had already fallen. The crowd followed the two great puppets through the cemetery and reached the center of the cemetery that no one had ever been to before. The moment they stepped into the center, a suffocating evil energy assaulted them. The teachers and students below the middle stage of the celestial realm could not resist the Path Master's strength at all. The students below the celestial realm even lost their minds the moment they stepped in and screamed crazily. With the help of Zi Xiaoyun, Dan Haiqing, Qin Hui, and the other late-stage celestial realm pathmasters, they were able to recover from their evil state. Those who are not late-stage celestial realm pathmasters, retreat. Zi Xiaoyun shouted solemnly. This was only the border of the central cemetery, and they had not reached the deeper parts. The evil energy in the deeper parts was even more intense, and even late-stage celestial realm path masters might not be able to resist it. Thus, only Zi Xiaoyun, Dan Haiqing, Qin Hui, and the other teachers stepped forward. Among the students, Suyu stepped forward and said, "Can I go too?" "You?" Zi Xiaoyun looked at him coldly. "I won't stop you if you want to die." A mere half-step path master dared to follow them into the depths of the cemetery. He really did not know what death was. Qin Hui hesitated for a moment, then relaxed. With Mo Wudao around, even if Su Yu was no match for the evil energy, he should be fine. Everyone, split up and find the source of the roar as soon as possible. Zi Xiaoyun squinted at the central area, which was filled with the evil energy. The crowd nodded and dispersed. Su Yu chose to act alone and headed straight for one of the giant tombs. As expected, the closer he got to the tomb, the heavier the evil energy became. Su Yu's 9-5 Ice Dragon energy could no longer defend against the evil energy, so he could only summon a 30-foot small world. The evil energy seeped into the 30-foot small world and disappeared without a trace like a clay ox entering the sea. Therefore, his cultivation was the lowest among them, but he moved the fastest without any worries. When he arrived in front of a huge tomb, there were words written in ancient blood, "Tomb of the Golden-Winged Ancient God." The words written in blood had existed since the beginning of the era until the end of the current era. It was as if someone had just written it. The blood was suffused with a sharp aura that pierced through the heavens and penetrated through the earth, as if there was an unyielding pride that existed for all eternity. Before he even got close to the cemetery, Su Yu was forced back 1,000 feet by the invisible force field. Even Mo Qinglong was unable to block that aura. So the golden-winged ancient god had already fallen at the beginning of the era. Mo Qinglong sighed with regret. Back then, he was a peerless ancient god that could compete with the sacred mountain's son of heaven. Su Yu shook his head. He was not interested in it, so he turned around and rushed to another cemetery. He saw a sword-shaped tombstone standing alone. Several bold words were written on a ring of black devil blood, "Ancient Devil God Tomb." Seeing that number, Mo Qinglong was shocked. Ancient God Devil Lord. As a member of the Devil Dao, how could he not know the first ancient god who created the Devil Dao? His eyes were filled with excitement as he stared longingly at the grave. If only I could take out the relic of the ancient god Devil Reverend. Mo Qingdao stared at the devil blood that was filled with a devilish nature and could kill without a trace, feeling extremely regretful. That was the relic of the ancient god. Even a strand of his hair had the power to shake the heavens and the earth. Unfortunately, with the devil blood guarding it, she could not approach it at all. She dared not have any ideas. Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. If only he had the ability to open the ancient god's cenotaph and retrieve the relic of the ancient god. Passing by the ancient god Devil Reverend's tomb, Su Yu went to the third tombstone. Looking at the words on the tombstone, Su Yu's heart trembled. Tomb of the Ancient God Evil Reverend. The name of this cemetery was the Ancient God Evil Reverend. It turned out that it was named after the ancient god. Unlike the other two tombs, the seals on this tomb were more than 10 times stronger than the other seals. Even so, there was still a strong evil energy under the seal, ready to break out of the tomb at any time. Su Yu's eyes narrowed slightly. At first glance, the evil energy under the seal gave him a sense of suffocation. It was like an ant standing in front of a giant. Even Mo Qinglong was shocked. Finally, I know where the evil energy of the evil reverend's cemetery comes from. It must have seeped out from the evil reverend's tomb bit by bit, inadvertently corroding the entire cemetery. There are rumors that the evil reverend's tomb is not just a cenotaph, but a palm of the ancient god Evil Reverend, Mo Qinglong said slowly. Su Yu's heart trembled. The palm of the ancient god? A drop of the ancient god's blood had the power of creation, let alone the entire palm of the ancient god. If he could control it, just the thought of it made his blood boil. However, this palm was not something he could touch. Not to mention the 10 layers of seals on top, just the evil energy accumulated over the years could not be ignored. Then, Su Yu walked towards the last tomb. There were only 4 cenotaphs of the ancient god. The first 3 were not the ancient god Jiolong, so there was only one left. However, what made Su Yu feel complicated was that it was not the tomb of the ancient god Jiolong, but the tomb of the ancient god Jin Xian. Sigh. Su Yu sighed softly. He was disappointed but also gratified. He was disappointed that he could not get more information about the ancient god Jiulong, but gratified that the ancient god Jiulong might not have fallen. At that moment, a low roar came from beside him. It was the tomb next to the tomb of the ancient god Jin Xian. The seal had been greatly damaged. The evil bones inside were stirring and making a huge noise. Su Yu did not dare to deal with the evil bones here alone. How could the person buried in the tomb of the ancient god be an ordinary almighty? He immediately sent a message to Zi Xiaoyun and the others, saying that he had found the source of the roar. No one dared to slack off. Before long, everyone and the two great venerable realm half-living puppets arrived. Fortunately, we discovered it in time. The evil bones have not broken through the coffin lid. Zi Xiaoyun heaved a long sigh of relief. He looked at the name on the tombstone and was even more relieved. So it is the screen of the roaring firmament wolf lord. He was an unparalleled almighty who was close to the master of the heavenly law when he was alive. If his evil bones had come out, we would have been in big trouble. Although it was not an ancient god, the appearance of the evil bones of the roaring firmament wolf lord was no small matter. At least, they could not suppress it. Only the two half-living puppets could. Let's repair the seal immediately. Qin Hui did not want to waste time. She immediately took out the materials for the formation and began to repair the formation. Zi Xiaoyun and Dan Haiqing also began to repair the formation. Once the formation was completely repaired, the disturbance in the evil master cemetery would be over. However, just as the three teachers began to repair the seal, the evil bones inside seemed to have sensed something. Not only did it roar madly, but it also increased its speed. Roar. With the roar at such a close distance, the three teachers were all hit. They were shaken to a bloody pulp on the spot, and their souls were severely injured. They lost the ability to seal for a moment. Chapter 2400. Qin Hui and Dan Haiqing did not dare stay any longer, retreating quickly. Only the two half-living puppets were left to continue repairing the formation. They had no consciousness, and could only listen to the commands of Xiao Yun and the rest mechanically, slowly and clumsily repairing the formation. The formation was being repaired bit by bit, but the howling firmament wolf king's movements were getting louder and louder, and his roars were getting more and more intense. Even the two half-living puppets were beginning to be affected, their movements becoming sluggish. Zi Xiaoyun and the rest felt their hearts clench as they watched the progress of the formation. It was a race against time. As long as the formation was successfully repaired, they would have nothing to worry about. But Xie Gu was obviously faster. The grave was already shaking, and he was about to dig his way out. The formation still needed some time to be repaired. The group could only worry, unable to provide assistance. Time passed bit by bit. Finally, the two half-living puppets had repaired the formation to the last moment. However, an incomparably dense wolf claw had already stretched out from the mausoleum. Seeing that he was about to escape, Su Yu activated the space domain, folding the space in front of the wolf claw 10,000 times. The wolf claw reached out and tore through thousands of layers of folded space. Then, it clawed again, shattering all the folded space. However, this gave the two half-living puppets extremely precious time, and they successfully closed the last gap in the seal. Qin Hui's anxious heart finally calmed down. The moment the wolf claw appeared, she was truly shocked. But what they did not expect was that before the formation could unleash its power, the wolf claw exploded with an unusually powerful force, shattering the formation from the inside out. Boom! With an explosion, the entire grave was blasted apart. A pale white skeleton covered in evil qi rushed out with a whoosh. Its terrifying aura had reached the level of a great venerable roar. Xie Gu let out a deafening roar, pouncing toward a half-living puppet nearby. The latter was expressionless, unleashing the cultivation level of a great venerable as it stood with Xie Gu. The other puppet quickly joined the battle. Su Yu observed from the side. He had to admit that the half-living puppets were much more agile than normal puppets. They also retained a powerful battle consciousness, not inferior to a true great venerable. Xiegu, on the other hand, was merely a skeleton that had been corroded by evil energy. At best, it was just a roaring beast. Although the battle between the two was dangerous, the two puppets had the upper hand. Under the nervous gazes of Zi Xiaoyun and the others, the battle between the two sides lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. Finally, Rotten Bones let out a wail and was crushed to the ground by the two half-life puppets. Phew! What a false alarm! Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Zi Xiaoyun said, "The remains of the Howling Firmament Wolf Lord have existed for too long, so the essence of the remains is only at this level. If it were 10,000 years ago, the cultivation of the remains would at least be at the middle stage of the Great Venerable Realm. At that time, it would really be a disaster." Qin Hui's furrowed brows relaxed. It was indeed a false alarm this time. He had thought that the skeleton of the Howling Firmament Wolf Lord would be extremely difficult to deal with, but who would have thought that it would be so easy to suppress? Just as everyone was about to step forward and seal the skeleton back into the mausoleum, suddenly, an undetectable earthen yellow halo flashed past Howling Firmament Wolf's eyes. Su Yu was observant, so he noticed it immediately and said, "Be careful." As soon as he finished speaking, he didn't even have time to retreat. The evil bone's entire body released an explosive yellow halo. The two half-life puppets were blasted away on the spot. Rotten Bones slowly got up, his body more than 10 times larger than before. His aura was still rising crazily. In the blink of an eye, he had broken through to the middle stage of the Great Venerable Realm. Swoosh, his 4 legs exerted force, and he leaped toward a half-life puppet that was flying backward. With a swipe of his claws, he tore the half-life puppet into 2. Immediately afterward, it made a turn in the air and rushed to the other half-life puppet, biting it into 2 with a single bite. The 2 Great Venerable Realm half-life puppets were destroyed within a few breaths. Zi Xiaoyun and the others, who had also been blasted away, crawled up with injuries all over their bodies. They were just in time to see the end of the 2 Great Venerable Realm puppets, and their faces were as pale as paper. How could this be? How could Rotten Bones' cultivation level increase without any warning? Zi Xiaoyun's lips trembled. After killing the 2 Great Venerable Realm puppets, Rotten Bones let out a low growl and turned his head toward them. Swoosh, Xielang leaped toward them like a bolt of lightning. The group only had time to put up their defenses before they heard a series of pathetic cries. Turning back to look, 3 teachers and students had been turned into puddles of blood. Xielang stood behind them with a mouth full of blood. He slowly turned around, preparing to launch a second attack. Su Yu's gaze turned cold. He had no choice but to use the heavenly dragon body, turning into a snow-white giant dragon. Roar, with a low growl, Rotten Bones charged over once again. Su Yu could not even discern his trajectory, only feeling a warm sensation beside him. His face was splattered with blood. Another few teachers and students were killed in an instant, including a later-stage Celestial Realm teacher. The people who had fallen were all around Su Yu, and he was the only one who was unscathed. Drip, Emo Qinglong, who was on Su Yu's back, had a drop of demonic blood dripping from the corner of his mouth, sliding down Su Yu's cheek. To think that I am no match for a skeleton that has been dead for an entire era. Emo Qinglong's face was pale. There was a hideous claw mark on his back. Just now, Emo Qinglong had used his body and demonic path to barely block the attack. Otherwise, Su Yu would have been dead. Su Yu's heart trembled. He had not expected to owe Emo Qinglong his life. Save your gratitude for the future. Now lend me your cultivation level. Otherwise we will both die. Emo Qinglong was on Su Yu's back, unable to move freely. It was easier for Su Yu to use his cultivation level. Looking at Zi Xiaoyun and the others, who had already disappeared without a trace, Su Yu nodded. A ferocious enemy at the middle stage of the Great Venerable Realm was beyond what he could handle. All right. Su Yu nodded. He immediately felt the boundless demonic energy from where he had fused with Mo Qinglong's body, crazily entering his body. Both Su Yu's body and vision had undergone earth-shattering changes. It was as if a mortal had suddenly stood at the peak of the clouds, overlooking the world. "Is this the feeling of the great venerable realm?" Su Yu muttered. But he did not have time to think. Xielang's attack had failed, so he pounced over again. Su Yu let out a cold grunt. His dragon body shook violently, and his dragon tail, carrying the power of both ice and demonic energy, struck Xielang's head. Thump! With a dull thud, Xialang was sent flying by the dragon's tail. But Xialang did not retreat. Instead, he became even more ferocious, roaring furiously as he tried to bite Su Yu's 10,000-foot dragon body. Su Yu waited with rapt attention. He opened his dragon mouth and spat out an icy dragon's breath, freezing everything in the world. But Xialang was unusually strong. His hard skull shattered the ice in an instant, charging straight for Su Yu,